Are you searching for a deeper understanding of your faith?
Inspiring Philosophy is your go-to resource for exploring the rich tapestry of Christian thought.
From biblical archaeology to philosophy of mind, we dive into the topics that matter.
Our content bridges faith and understanding, offering insights into God's existence and the reliability of the New Testament.
Join a community where faith meets reason and discover the answers you've been seeking.
Inspiring Philosophy, where faith meets understanding.
Erase the name. Now every idol sounds the same. A generation on its knees, begging comfort, killing peace. Oh, this is the price of pride. Dancing while the truth just dies. We fear the cross, embrace the chain. Our freedom's just another cage. In the ruins, a whisper stands, scarred and radiant, pierced hands. The silence breaks, the dark retreats. The king returned and thunder breaks. Where the last light fading under broken skies, chasing meaning in electric lights. But grace still burns where shadows fall. The dead arise, he conquers all. Take one last breath before the dawn takes back the
Flip flop, time to mop. I'm your disgruntled neighborhood philosopher.
the cranky old man, Mike.
I'm
And
very cranky. I'm very old. I'm definitely very man. That's for sure. So we got all that correct. All right. I wanted to do one on the resurrection today because Paulo Gia inspired me, man. He inspired me.
inspiring Philopia.
Philopia. Yeah. No, I was like, yeah, resurrection. I mean, it's what we keep talking about. We're trying to get a bunch of research together for a full series on that. And I'm like, yeah, let's just talk to some people about the resurrection. Let's see what they think of it. Here's how this is going to work, folks. I'm going to do some quick super chats here, and then I'm going to give you like a 5-minute or so presentation I'm going to give you a 5-minute presentation on the resurrection by myself alone, because apparently some people are not appreciative of the way I pronounce things. Anyway, he's back. Dang it. Mike has Burger King food delivery lips. What on earth is this supposed to? What?
Can you do the Libiano pose just so we can see?
No.
How do you? Okay.
I refuse to, sir. No. What does this even mean?
I actually don't know.
Okay. I think you do. You're just afraid to tell me. What's going on in Discord server? I'm disappointed in them. I blame them on this. I don't know why, but I do.
The Discord server, people are mad. People are still upset about what's happening because they can't flirt with me anymore. But this is not happening in the Discord server.
Lord help us. Oh, my goodness. All right. Thank you, Sheila, for gifting 5 Inspiring Philosophy memberships. Trey says, I've been studying Surah Maryam 1933 for a couple of weeks now. Jesus says in the verse that he will die, while the Quran in Surah An-Nasai 4157 says he was neither killed nor crucified. Let me just look at that really. I mean, it depends. Let me see. Peace be upon me, the day I was born, the day I die, the day I will be raised back. So the way I think traditional Sunnis interpret that, Trey, is they say Jesus hasn't died yet. He will die, according to the Sunni understanding, is that he's taken to heaven, but he's going to come back, defeat the Antichrist, and then he's going to have a bunch of wives and kind of chill on earth for a couple of decades, then die. So that's generally how that's understood. Hope that helps. Than, I think you mean what? Greater than?
Yeah.
Okay. Days to live. Need your help as a brother, Cleo. What do you need your help with? What's wrong? You have days to live. Well, try to email us.
Yeah.
Go through the Discord. I don't know what you mean. We need more information. All right, let's bring in we're bringing our first guest here in a minute. I'm going to do my quick presentation just so you guys understand where we're coming from in terms of the resurrection. So yes, we claim Jesus did rise from the dead. Let's first cover some cultural background stuff. Okay. So no Jewish messianic movement ever claimed their Messiah died and rose, and that proved that they are the Messiah. We know about Judas the Galilean, Simon, and Athrong, Sudius, the Egyptian prophet, Simon Bar Giora, Simon Bar Kokhba. Only the Christians said their Messiah, Jesus, rose to atone for the sins of the world. So this is a weird thing. It doesn't really fit our background knowledge. So we have to explain how in 33 AD, Jesus is crucified, and then the disciples are proclaiming shortly after that he resurrected. So what happened in the middle to explain how they got this belief? We argue the Gospels are reliable. This is important data. If you want more, you can check this out. So we won't. You can see this all in our 6-part series. So let's first talk about. It's generally agreed by scholars, including very skeptical ones, the disciples experienced something. Paula Frederickson said, "I know in their own terms what they saw was the raised Jesus. That's what they saw, and then the historic evidence we have afterwards attested their conviction that that's what they saw." I'm not saying that they really did see the raised Jesus. I wasn't there. I don't know what they saw, but I do know that as an historian, they must have seen something. So Jesus died, and the disciples saw something that convinced them thoroughly that he rose from the dead. Several of our early sources claim seeing Jesus risen from the dead. It's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's in Acts. It's in 1 Corinthians 15. Josephus even agrees. There's early sermons preserved in Acts. The claims are that Jesus appeared to many people he knew for long periods of times in multi-sensory forms, and the dates of the claims are within the witness's lifetime. There's this creed in 1 Corinthians 15 we cite a lot. It's very early. Scholars date it to within a few years of Pentecost or the crucifixion, and it lists numerous appearances of Jesus, that he was buried, and that what was buried is that what was raised. And so this is, again, as Gerald Collins say, no one dates this to the late 40s. It's generally, the consensus is it's a very, very early creed, as Mike Lacona points out here. Let's talk about the appearance of the disciples. As I noted, another important fact to bring in on this is that even skeptics were convinced, like James and Paul. Neither were followers of Jesus during his ministry, but after he died, they were convinced he rose from the dead, and they converted. Nick Meter, who we just had on the channel yesterday, notes that it's very unlikely these could come from hallucinations. I'm not going to get too much into this now. If you want to pause and read, you can. I want to kind of move on. Could it have been hallucinations? Peer-reviewed work on hallucinations also reports that they most often manifest in one sensory form, such as auditory or visual, and that multi-mode hallucinations are exceptionally rare. Our early reports also tell us the tomb was found empty, and it was first discovered by women, an embarrassing fact for the early church. The testimony of women was not to be trusted, as scholars, as we can see from some of the early Jewish sources. This is what N.T. Wright says as well. Also, if the body was sort of taken out, as some people have alleged, maybe the body was stolen. We have to remember this was Passover. The city of Jerusalem was flooded with pilgrims. Where are they going to hide a body? People would have seen them. We also know they immediately proclaimed the resurrection in Jerusalem, where the enemies of Jesus and the church had the means and the motives to debunk them. Fakers go out into the desert, or they lead their followers to Utah. They don't stay where they can easily be debunked, like in New York. They lead their followers elsewhere. We also know our earliest reports show that many of the apostles were suffering for something they knew to be false, if that was the case. So here's what we have to posit to avoid a resurrection, to explain all of the early and reliable data. Okay, the disciples experienced multimodal group hallucinations. This happened for the women at the tomb and the disciples, maybe more than once. Skeptics like James and Paul also experienced something and converted. Then they made up a story of women discovering the tomb, which would have destroyed their ancient case. They came up with a belief that was completely unlike what they believed in the cultural background. They claimed that this in the very place where their enemies had the means and the motives to debunk them, and they voluntarily suffered for a claim they should have known to be false. And last, the tomb was found empty. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds extraordinary to me. So extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Since this is something that's often been thrown at us, I'd like to see if anybody has that. We argue the best explanation of the data is that Jesus rose from the dead. Right, Than?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll bring in some guests, see what we can do. Nathan, you were first, so we'll bring you in. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hey, Mike and Than.
All right. What's your, you Muslim, atheist, what are you?
Jewish. So we've met before a couple months ago. I don't know if you remember.
Where did we meet?
On the call.
Oh, you called in. I thought you meant in person.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Okay. So you're Jewish, so you believe in God.
Yeah.
You believe in the God of the Bible too.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. So what is your contest? How do you contest the resurrection? What are your objections?
So I haven't necessarily done a lot of preparation. I just saw the notification. So I'm just going to throw this out there.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't necessarily believe that the resurrection had to have not happened. It could have happened. That doesn't mean that Jesus is still divine. It could have been one of those false miracles done by a false prophet. Not necessarily, even if he's not the false prophet, if it was one of the disciples or someone else, a necromancer. There's stories of necromancers at the time in the Talmud during Jesus's time. So we know this is something that was going on. It could have been a false prophet, if not himself, someone else. We know that false prophets can do miracles too, as I think Deuteronomy 13:1-3 says, if there arises in your midst a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, he gives you a sign or wonder, and the sign or the wonder which he spoke to you happens, and he says, let us go after other gods which you have not known. By the way, he predicts his death too, so this is something that he says will happen, and then it happens. You shall not heed the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul.
Okay, so you're willing to accept the possibility that satanic powers, Satan himself, can bring people back to life.
Not necessarily Satan, but someone, a figure like Balaam or the
Like a
Witch of
false
Endor.
Humans. So right. Jews don't actually believe Satan's a bad guy. They believe he works for God. My mistake. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but so some random dude can bring people back to life.
the Witch of Endor brings back Sam, not necessarily in the exact manner, but brings back the witch.
Yeah.
Brings
I
back
mean-
Samuel, brings back his spirit, which I would say is
Spirit.
yeah. That's a very you don't believe we can do that now, that people can do that in today's world.
I mean,
That's
I'm
pretty
not
outlandish.
opposed as a Christian. I'm not opposed to Satan giving powers to his slaves, human slaves that he has enslaved, to give them the ability to summon spirits. That is very different than a body getting out of the grave. And I mean, just to bring some verses, I mean, it seems as though the Hebrew Bible teaches that only God is the one who can give life. So Deuteronomy 32:39, I kill, I make alive, I wound, I heal. And there is none that can deliver out of my hand. 1 Samuel 2:6, the Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. Is there anywhere in the Bible that says anyone else can have this power? Because it seems as though that's an ability only attributed to God.
Well, someone does this through the power of God. Elisha does this when he brings back the boy whose mother he was staying with, who provided hospitality for him. He does this with the power of God, but it's unclear whether.
I agree. But I mean, like, so if the resurrection happened, would that mean that God did it through an agent then? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. It could have been done in a similar situation to the Witch of Endor, because that also seems like a very outlandish power, being able to communicate with dead spirits, especially a prophet. That's something
I think we're comparing mountains and molehills here.
Even if the body was resurrected, it's not, it could have been that it was just physically resurrected in a like zombified state of some sort where it was able to move around. It wasn't necessarily the same consciousness as Jesus.
So do you think that Jesus physically rose?
I think there's a possibility. I don't personally believe it, but I'm not going to deny it. I think there's a
What we
possibility.
need here, sir, what we need here, Nathan, is we need an alternative explanation. This is something I was ranting about yesterday. We're saying the best explanation of all the available data is that the body in the tomb, Jesus's body, came back to life and walked out of the tomb physically. This wasn't a spirit like what the Witch of Endor did. Do you have so what we need from you is we need you to offer a better explanation and show how it can explain all the data simpler.
Oh, so two things regarding this. One, it didn't necessarily, and I know you may try to cut me off. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. You may try to cut me off after the first thing to argue about the tomb. First of all, it did not necessarily have to be the physical body of Jesus. It could have been an apparition of him. And then you would ask, oh, well, what happened to the body? Where is it? They didn't find it in the tomb. And there's a couple solutions to that. One is that we know historically at the time of Jesus, he did not have a huge following. I think this is something that's drastically exaggerated, or not even drastically exaggerated. I don't think the New Testament, which I've never read, I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't think it makes it seem as though Jesus has this huge follower base. It's a relatively small group when he's alive. And based off of the Talmud, not even addressing Jesus, nothing from the Jewish records during his lifetime really addresses the followers. There's no rabbis that are going and debating him or debating his followers.
We don't have anything in the Talmud from the time of Jesus. It's all written long after.
We do have Justin Martyr's dialogue with Trypho, which maintains that the Jews at the time, their counter argument was that somebody paid the guards to steal Jesus.
Oh, I'm not even going to argue. I'm not even going to go that far. I'm going to say that it was so insignificant to the Romans, who didn't see it as a major enough thing where they would need to go send people to retrieve the body. He didn't have enough followers. if some minor cult leader dies in the United States, I'm not trying to be disrespectful again. I'm not comparing.
No,
the
you're
two.
fine. Just
no. We get it.
They,
But I
they
mean,
wouldn't go
it's
dig
getting
up
a
his
little
body.
long-winded. So, like, what is the theory with what is the point with the tomb that you're trying to make right now?
That it could have been that it was so insignificant to the Romans that they didn't need to send someone to go and make sure that the body wasn't there. The following was so small.
This doesn't explain our data because I didn't even bring up the Romans in the opening presentation, if you remember.
Oh yeah, I'm doing that. As I
disciples
said, it didn't necessarily have to be the physical body that they saw when people claimed to have seen him. It could have been an apparition of him, an illusion of him, not necessarily the physical body. This way, it's in line with the idea that a false prophet wouldn't necessarily be bringing him back from the dead.
Okay, we are trying very hard to get you to just what you think is that they saw, I mean, apparitions or hallucinations. Is that what you're claiming?
Yeah, I mean, he walked on water and all stuff that could have been done.
We're not talking about the miracles during the ministry. We're just talking about the resurrection. So after Jesus died, his disciples got together and they started hallucinating that he had risen.
No, not hallucinating. It would have appeared visible to anyone who was there.
But it was
like
non-veridical
appearance.
They saw it, but it wasn't physically the same body that he inhabited when he was alive.
Here's a simple question: why did no one go and check the tomb?
That's what I was answering with part 2. That it was so insignificant. He didn't have enough followers. He had 12 disciples, maybe a couple people who he did some miracles for.
No,
we have a tradition that's indexed even to Jewish leaders post-Jewish war that's maintained from the Gospel of Matthew all the way to Trypho that talks about people accusing the followers of Jesus paying off Roman the guards at the tomb because they are trying to explain the missing body.
That could be a possibility, but that's something that arose later.
Okay.
No. Well, how do you know that? Because again, we have the Gospel of Matthew. Why would Trypho, a Jew, be continuing this thing? Like, why would that accusation run in Jewish circles if it wasn't an authentic thing?
Could you just explain to me and some of the people in the audience what true Trypho is and when that was? I don't know.
Trypho is a Jew.
When he was born.
Justin Martyr is an early church figure, and he has a dialogue with a Jew named Trypho. In that dialogue, Trypho is saying the same thing that you find in Matthew's gospel, that the guards were paid off in order to take Jesus's body.
Oh yeah.
Why would a Jew be saying something like that if that's just like a later embellished development?
So Justin Martyr is a church father, then this is already after the spread of Christianity surpassed. Sometimes surpassed. There's already been a passage of time. Christianity has grown.
Wait, I'm not communicating this point very clearly. Imagine Mike is a Jew for a second, okay? Would Mike and the circles that he runs in have any motivation to adopt a later developed apologetic from my camp to argue against me? Or would Mike be like, no, we check the body or something like that? Like anything other than just actually,
here, Nathan, to add what he's saying. If you are correct, Trypho should be arguing like you are right now because you had no way to check the body. But instead, he's arguing like an apologetic that kind of works against his case because he knows he has to do something. He should be saying like, well, this was a much later developed thing. He doesn't do that, though. That's the point.
Yeah, I don't think that's a contradiction. I think what could have happened is that Trypho comes along at a later period when Christianity has grown. Now he needs to refute them. In the early period, when what I was talking about, Christianity was such a small movement, there was no need to even refute them. So there wouldn't have been a need to even check the tomb. Later on, when Christianity became bigger and they would have had people, oh, look, the body's not there. Then they could have possibly paid off the guards, or they would have come up with the myth, because now they have to come up with a way to argue against the Christians.
So the fundamental problem here is, how does this explain the data in a way that's better than our theory? Because just what you've explained, what the hypothesis you've just given doesn't really explain the data very well. It doesn't explain why you find this account in Matthew's gospel. It doesn't explain why Justin Martyr and Trypho are talking about it this way. It doesn't explain why your theory isn't used at all in these time periods doesn't really explain much, right?
There's a perfect explanation that I can give.
Nathan, you've given a possible explanation, but the problem is you need an explanation that actually predicts and covers the whole scope of the data, not just like can account for it in any way, shape, or form.
I 100% agree. And that's why I'm not saying that this has, the reason why I'm disputing what the gospel says is not because I just don't believe it for some skeptical reason, because I don't believe in resurrection or something like that. The reason I'm disputing that is because Jesus's teachings align, in my opinion, and based off of what the scripture says, with the earlier scriptures, with the teachings of a false prophet, in that he talks about a new covenant, all of a new covenant, abolishing the law, all of these things that are said to remain constant.
Whoa. Okay, two questions.
Yeah.
Wait. Where did Jesus say he's coming to abolish the law? Matthew 5 shows he says I'm not coming to abolish the law. Matthew 5.
He says to fulfill it. I don't know what that fulfill means. Do Christians follow the law? No, they don't.
He says, do not think I've come to abolish law. I've come to fulfill the law. Not one jot, not one tittle shall pass away until all is fulfilled. He also says heaven and earth passing away as well. But this is beside the point. This is a theological issue. I have a question. If someone says there needs to be a new covenant, does that make them a false prophet?
If they're claiming that they have divine authority and that's why they're saying it, then yeah, because
then Jeremiah is a false prophet. Jeremiah 31 says there will be a new covenant.
No, but he's not saying that the law is no longer going to exist. Jews acknowledge that there's going to be a new covenant.
You just shifted the goalpost there, and we agree the law is still in effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you're not a Puritan. You don't believe that you have to follow the Mosaic law.
Yes, we do.
Then why don't you do it?
Because we do it in the way that Jesus taught us to do.
So faith absolves you from it.
But here's the thing.
Wait. There might be a disconnect here. Do you understand the context in which this conversation is happening with Jesus and the Pharisees when he says, do not think I've come to abolish the law, but I've come to fulfill it? Do you in the Second Temple period, this is post-exile, but the Jews at the time in Second Temple period still think they're in the exile, right? And there's debates happening at this point about how to follow the law, because there's laws that they can't follow.
Well, the exile hasn't ended. There's still a huge Jewish community.
I literally just said that. I literally just said it's post-exilic, but the Jews at the time are still thinking they're in the exile. They're still under
because they are.
Okay, you can go to that time and you can go to like the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the Essenes, and all of them are saying you're not following the law. The Christians come in and say this is the proper way to follow the law. They're just another one of those different groups in there. So I mean, this is just you saying, this is just you arguing in a circle. We don't follow the law because we don't do it like you do, but we have a different interpretation. Like this is a waste of time. It has nothing to do with the actual argument.
Well, no, we have 3 books.
But if your whole objection to the resurrection is just that we don't follow the law, that's not a good objection, because that's assuming the conclusion.
Well, you're saying that Jesus taught that you don't have to follow the law laid out in Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and half of Exodus.
Yeah. So if to continue my trajectory here, what Jesus is doing is he's saying the spirit of the law, the trajectory of the law, the telos of the law is fulfilled in these commandments. And what are the commandments that he says? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love their neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, but how do you love your neighbor? How do you love God? The Torah says how to do it.
Okay, we are getting way off topic. This has nothing to do with it. Are you saying your only objection to the resurrection is that it leads to something you think is heretical?
Yeah, just to recap, I'm not just objecting to Than's earlier point a while ago, just so we can get back on topic. I'm not refuting the resurrection and the gospel account just for no reason, proposing this skeptical other view for no reason. I'm specifically proposing this because it aligns with what the Torah says about someone who says there's going to be, you don't have to follow the law anymore, or changes it in some way.
Where does the Torah say anything about not following the law anymore or changing it or anything like that?
It says in Deuteronomy 4:2, you shall not add to the word that I command you, nor shall you subtract from it. That's right, obviously we don't do that. Subtract in order to keep the commandments that has the Lord and that the Lord your God has commanded you.
Okay, so did the later prophets after Deuteronomy, did they add scripture? Did they add to the law when like Jeremiah or Isaiah taught?
Can you give me an example of something that they added or subtracted?
The book of Isaiah. Isaiah added the book of Isaiah to scripture.
That's not law. The prophets aren't law.
Okay, great. So I mean, like, this is, again, you're just assuming the conclusion. This has nothing to do with the main topic, though. Like, if Jesus did rise from the dead and did claim to be Yahweh, wouldn't that at least make you like go, okay, now I got to reassess the evidence here, my theology here. I wouldn't start with my theology in the face of miracles and say, well, that's got to be something. I would assess the miracle.
I'm using chronological evidence. Earlier parts say all of this has to be done. This cannot be done, such as removing things. Therefore, if it happens, we have to look for what's in line with the earlier evidence.
Jesus didn't.
It's all chronological.
Anything. He did not abolish the law, as we pointed out.
What is it? So then why don't you follow it if he didn't abolish it?
Because he said, all the laws fulfilled in love thy neighbor as thyself and love God. And so we follow Jesus. Jesus is our priest. He upholds the law perfectly for us. And
so
now
when the Torah gives laws of damages, why don't you follow those? That's also in the law. If he's saying, no, you don't have to do that, you just have to love your neighbor, you're subtracting those elements from it. Now, I'm not.
Do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree that the Torah gives different laws for like the priests of Aaron versus the whole congregation?
Yeah, but it says those are for the priests of Aaron.
Exactly.
Gentiles don't have to follow the Mosaic law.
Doesn't it say the Torah is for the Jews, for the Israelites?
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, now notice the difference here. These different layers. We as Gentiles, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 7, we are to remain of the uncircumcised, whereas the Jews are to remain of the circumcised. That's 100%. For that priestly community. Great. So then we're keeping the law according to how it's been given.
Yeah.
We're not part of that congregation. We're good.
Yeah, but so I'm objecting to New Israel theology. That's what I'm talking about, where Christians say they're. I don't know if you subscribe to that. I don't know if you. Can you just clarify if that's something? Okay.
No.
So we're on the same page. Gentiles never had to subscribe to the law, but Jews do. Gentiles only have the 7 Noahide commandments. So which are not just love your God.
Okay, let's just laser focus in here. How does this make it the case that Jesus is a false prophet?
At least for Jews, in that what he says doesn't apply to Jews when it comes to the law no longer being necessary for Jews.
How does this make Jesus a false prophet? Like,
because he's contradicting earlier texts.
That doesn't really answer the question.
I can give you some scripture if you want.
Well, why don't you come back another time and do it? We're going to move on because we're not even talking about the resurrection at this point. So I appreciate you coming, Nathan. We'll talk to you in the future. I'm done. Way off topic. We started out with a good conversation, talking about the resurrection. You're not there anymore. I'm gonna bring this next guest in. He's next in line, but you ready for this name? What's up, Zutt? How you doing, man?
Wait, hold on. Can I go after? Can you come back to me?
Yes, I can. Master, what in God's holy earth am I looking at right now?
I'm just anonymous. Please don't mind me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I was invited by some people. Are you guys Christians?
Yeah. Are you human?
Oh yeah. I'm Master Friend.
So
nice to meet you.
We are interested if you can debunk the resurrection seriously, or if not, we will move on.
Let me just lead you down a pathway. Okay. So the resurrection is like the basis for everybody's faith in God, right?
It's the basis for the faith in Christianity and Jesus.
Yeah, okay. So would you agree that it says in the Bible that there was a list of people who did see this resurrection, right? You had Peter, the 12 disciples, 500 people at once, then James, then all the apostles, then Paul, right? Mm-hmm. Now, would you agree? Yeah, so would you agree that people of these biblical times documented and preserved history very well over the years? Yes or no?
All of the people?
No, just people like if somebody rose from the dead, you think that someone would write about it and then preserve that documentation, yeah?
Not necessarily. I mean, like that's a very broad question.
If all you're asking is, do we think that the Gospels are reliable? Then the answer is yes.
Well, here's my problem. Okay, if I'm going to give my mind, body, and soul to something, I want to make sure that it exists. So can you name me one contemporary for Jesus Christ and his miracles and resurrection?
That's an argument from silence, my friend.
What do you mean?
It's an argument from silence.
There are no people that were writing while Jesus was doing miracles, if that's what you mean. The first thing we have would be the creed of 1 Corinthians 15. That's the first developed work that's in later preserved in Paul's letters.
Yeah, and this is written after Jesus' death, yeah?
Yep.
Why is that a problem?
Yeah, so it's a problem because, these Jews that are ruining the party for the world globally, they want to convince you that Jesus Christ died for your sins and then resurrected from the dead. But there's no contemporary for this.
So what?
Man.
So it's not about
Master
it's
Friend.
not about
Presumably,
me.
you
Hold
think
on.
this is somehow lowering the probability that these are
Well, yeah,
authentic accounts, or that
this
Jesus rose
religion-
from the dead. Wait, hold, stop.
Yeah.
Let me finish.
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
saying this is a argument from silence. I am saying that you are pointing to a lack of data, and somehow you're saying this lowers the probability. What you need to do then is say, hey, given the hypothesis that these are actual accounts, somehow this lack of data is drastically unexpected. Therefore, this is evidence against that hypothesis.
Also, you got to take the actual history in context. Think of something that was pretty climactic in the ancient world: the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. How many contemporaries wrote about that?
Well, I didn't study that, so I don't know.
Yeah, one. It was Pliny. Pliny the Younger wrote about it. So you think about it. Think about how eruptive that was for the Roman world. Mount Vesuvius destroying Pompeii, destroying the surrounding towns. We've got one. And that's important, because if you think about the way this works, of the documents from the first century that we have for that region, it may fill up a bookshelf. 90% of our ancient and medieval documents have been lost. And that was a fraction of what was happening, because, again, most of the people in the ancient world were illiterate. So it's like, and even if they were literate, I mean, it was still very expensive. It'd take like over a day's wage to write a document. So the fact that we have 4 gospels, pretty impressive from the ancient world, actually.
Oh, for sure. But here's the problem that I have.
I'm going to put a paper in. I'm just letting him know. I'm putting a paper in the chat. It's a must-read paper on this form of argumentation, on arguments from silence. I would definitely
go ahead, friend.
All right. So this Bible says that if I don't believe in Jesus, I'm going to burn in hell for all eternity. Correct?
No.
No?
No.
Am I confused?
Did Abraham believe in Jesus?
Well,
he believed in Yahweh. He didn't know the name Jesus, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Jesus says in John 9:42 and John 9:41 and John 15:22, if I had not come, they would not be guilty. But now that I have come, they have no excuse. He's talking.
That's what I mean.
He's talking about the Pharisees.
My point.
Well, hold on. You just assumed something that we said. So first of all, there's a lot of assumptions. One, we say we do believe there are possibilities of postmortem salvation. It's going to be different per person. But we also want to point out that we're okay with annihilationism. So it's not for all eternity. So there's a lot of theological things you just sort of packed into there that we want to address.
Okay. But the problem I have is like this religion from the Middle East demands my mind, body, and soul.
Yep.
And so like the whole resurrection of Jesus is the basis of that faith, right?
Yep.
So like you said at the beginning, big claims require big evidence.
Okay.
No.
So,
well, you're in luck. We have big evidence.
Okay, so can you name me one contemporary for Jesus Christ?
We have other big evidence.
I just need one.
No, you just said you need big evidence. I gave big evidence in my opening presentation.
No, I need one contemporary for Jesus Christ. If you're gonna demand my mind, body, and soul.
Wait a minute. Let me get a question. So can the contemporary have written after? Like, let's say somebody experienced Jesus' miracles and he wrote down like after. Would that be sufficient? So it's got to be a contemporary, writing during that time. Why?
Yes.
Why?
Well, because this religion from the Middle East, and I'm a white person from Europe, this religion demands my mind, body, and soul from something that is surrounded by the resurrection of a Jew. So can you give me at least just one? All I want is one. Just one
what you just did
for Jesus Christ.
Is you set an incredibly high, unreasonable standard based on a conclusion. You did not start with evidence. You did not go, I'm going to follow the evidence where it leads to truth. You just said, well, I need this based on a subjective standard. Why does that need to be why does that need to be the standard?
Well, because this religion demands my mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm not going to keep going in circles.
I don't even know why you let him get away with the title "Big Claims Require Big Evidence."
It's stupid.
Like, I'm so sick and tired of these stupid probabilistic errors people make constantly. I'm a little grumpy right now because I'm tired. I'm sorry.
No, I always say if somebody says, extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence, I just say you're in luck. All my evidence is extraordinary. So that's all I was doing there. Hey, Zutt, are you ready or are you still doing something? Are you there?
Give him some more time.
All right, give him some more time. I don't know. Let's get to some super chats here. I don't know what's going on. I need that intro song to hear at the gym. Jesus is King. We should put that on
the IP Stream Clips channel.
Okay, it's on IP Stream Clips. Go there. It's on there.
We'll eventually. Matt said we'll put that stuff on Spotify eventually. So I'm not in charge of that.
The Word and I says IP's quick presentation is 100 slide infomercial. Thank you. Appreciate it. Love you both. Keep doing the good work, man, on your channel. The witch was actually surprised by Samuel's appearance. Yeah, that's one of the things about it is that the way the story is kind of written is that it's not so much that it seems as though it could be understood in a way that the witch is sort of like, she's a trickster, but then she actually sees something happening and she's like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. Kind of God is the one who actually brought Samuel up. But I was trying not to get too much in the weeds on that because it was irrelevant. Because a spirit coming and visiting you is not the same as a dead body rising from the grave. Recently saw your video on how Christianity ended slavery and really enjoyed it. My high schooler is going to be writing a paper on that topic. Could you refer the best books from that series? Yeah. Okay, hold on. Hang on. There's the one I would say is there was a paper I cited in there by John Coffey. Trying to find that for you really quick. Yeah, it's the abolition of the slave trade, Christian conscience in political action. So that's a short little paper for a high schooler that I would recommend using. Some of the books I use are pretty big. Like Robert Fogel's book was pretty big. The one book by Ben Wright was also pretty good. Maybe go with those two because he's a high schooler. I mean, he can always just take stuff from the video too. I wouldn't be upset by that. Go in that direction for sure. But yeah, go try maybe that paper in that book. I don't want to overload a high school student. That might be pretty good for that. Okay, so are you here now, Zutt?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it was just a mic problem. Sorry about that.
Okay, cool. So what are you? Are you atheist? Are you Muslim? What are you?
Agnostic.
Okay.
So
why would you guess Muslim?
I had to ask.
Actually, that's a pretty good guess because most of the Zutt tribe is now Muslim, fortunately.
Yep. See, that's what I was thinking. I was like, he can't really be, but
that's a very
I'm gonna ask guess. Anyway. All right. So what is your objection to the resurrection?
Okay, so I just sorry, I'm nervous. When you make that point that the Gospels use women as witnesses, well, I just find Atheologica said it's different because these aren't like Roman legal documents. These are poetry, Jewish poetry, and you can see that they use women in Acts, if I'm correct.
Yeah. The problem with this is that we know, for example, like that Celsus, for example, used this as a weapon against them because the Gospels were not just for poetry. They were for evangelism. They were for teaching Christians what their faith was and how to go out and teach it. And when they did that, Celsus used this against them. He said, you getting your information from a belligerent woman. Yeah, I know they're not Roman legal documents. We're not saying that. We're just saying the culture generally disparaged testimony from women. And this is why I think it's actually not even used. The women are not brought up in the creed. Like they develop this quick little creed. And they're like, okay, here are the witnesses. Great. But when they have to tell the stories, they can't get around it because the women are so central to the story.
You also do have, I'm trying to find it in my notes really quickly, but you do have Jewish sources that actually talk about women testimony not being worthwhile and stuff like that. I can find it if you want it, but
yeah, I would like to see that. If you could,
didn't I put some in my presentation? I did. I totally did. Let me
Yeah, it's got to find it.
Hang on. No, I got it right here.
200-page document of notes on this.
Well, see, this is why I have these nice little presentations here. What did I put up the wrong one? No, I didn't. Okay, good. So it was right past here. Here they are when I was talking about the empty tomb. So let me zoom in here. So notice this one. So we have Kelsis is the first example, but Rabbi Eleazar said, "Let the words of the law be burned rather than committed to women." There was a Jewish prayer. The men bless God who has not made them Gentile, a slave, or a woman. So I just listed a couple there.
There's some other ones. Let no one talk with a woman in the street. No, not with his own wife. Pray. This is a prayer for an unborn child that we have. Oh God, let not my offspring be a girl, for very wretched is the life of a woman. You have Josephus says, but not let the testimony of women be admitted on account of the levity and boldness of their sex. You have you have stuff in the Talmud and stuff like that.
Okay, well that's pretty thorough.
So I'm kind of confused on what the objection is. Do you want to?
Yeah, go back to it? I was just. Well, atheologically, he was saying that you can't use that.
I haven't heard of that
because they weren't
so
legal.
long.
Wait, excuse me.
I'm sorry. That's just like a throwback. I haven't heard atheological in a long time.
Yeah, that's. Can I go to my other point? I guess.
Yeah.
Sure.
So so I brought this up. Because I did watch your stream where there's like new evidence that Josephus is more reliable. Yeah. Okay. So then I brought that up. That was the point of that essentially that Josephus was related to the high priest Ananias, and that was that the point?
So Josephus wasn't related. He knew these people. Thomas Schmidt points out he knew a lot of these people personally. And he mentions, and when he's talking about Jesus, he says, this came from the first men among us, which was a common phrase he would use to refer to people that he had actually known and was getting his information directly from. So he gets his information directly from people who interacted with the apostles and Jesus is the point.
Okay, so when I brought this up to like CQ Radio, they essentially like spun it in a way that this is actually proof that this is a conspiracy, that Jesus is he's a mythical character. This is like a part of a conspiracy to subvert everyone else. Okay, because they're using, yeah.
I'm gonna. Hopefully this doesn't come out the wrong way. I think you need to stop hanging around these mythicist circles.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that in a disparaging way. It's just, if there's one thing that like a lot of skeptical, critical agnostics and atheists are going to agree with Christians on, is that like while we butt our heads on the methodologies and the arguments when it comes to historical Jesus stuff and gospel reliability stuff, New Testament stuff, whatever, right? One of the things we do agree on and we like lock hands with together on is like, this is like really bad over here on the mythicist circle side of things. And all you're really doing at the end of the day is kind of just training yourself to not think very well if those are the things that you're engaging in. Because I'll stop there because I'm just going to stop. I'm going to start going on a yap fest about that. But that would be some of my advice there.
Okay, so what you're saying is this is like a fringe circle that is frowned upon by academia universally.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but like that's not really my main point because sure, it can be just because it's fringe or the academia like laughs at it or something like that. That doesn't make it bad. That doesn't make it wrong, right? I'm saying fundamentally the structure of the reasoning process that a lot of these people that proponents of these views employ are fundamentally flawed.
Okay, they're not using the right methods.
Yeah, because if you took that same structure of reasoning and applied it to many other places, you would have really bad counterexamples.
Well, could you elaborate on that again?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, think about just something as simple as like the claim extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence and stuff like that, right? All just do me a favor and try to actually like elaborate what you think mythicists mean when they say something like that.
Well, I guess they're taking the worst, the most nefarious interpretation, maybe.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is like they'll say something like a guy named Jesus existing is something that just has such a drastically low probability, apparently, that like the Gospels are going to be made up Roman propaganda. Just take a moment to really think about how just how common or like how not crazy of a claim it is that there's a guy named Jesus who people thought was the Messiah, right?
Yeah.
Let's actually just pause right there, right? There's a guy named Jesus. We know Jesus was a popular name at the time. We know that there were Messiah figures in the Second Temple period. Do you see mythicists doing any of the crazy things that they try to do with Jesus do you see them doing any of that with figures like Simon Bar Kokhba, who was another messianic figure, alleged
No.
messianic figure?
No, sir.
Right. So, like, what does that tell you?
There's some ill will.
Well, I'm not gonna psychologize, right? All I'm trying to say is there's an inconsistency in the methodology. There's different structures of reasoning being used and employed when it comes to the historical Jesus studies by these people than employed in many other areas.
They're raising the standard.
I mean, sure, there's tons of different like places that you can point to and say they're doing something here and doing something here wrong here and yada yada yada. And I don't like psychologizing intellectual opponents. All I'm saying is, at minimum, if there's an inconsistency in the methodology, that tells you something is off in the structure of reasoning. So what I would do if I were you is like, if you're an agnostic and you want to know the best of both worlds, I would try to put away the mythicist stuff, and I would instead try to read some of the critical scholars that atheists and agnostics would probably try to point to. Like, obviously read Ehrman, read James D.G. Dunn, read I would say read Allison, even because I find myself disagreeing with him on a lot of places. Like, you get the point, right? There's tons of scholars that I think you can read and gain a lot of valuable knowledge from, rather than like going to these mythicist podcasts.
Okay, wait, what was the whole name of that Allison guy?
Oh, Dale Allison.
Dale Allison.
He is a Christian. He is a Christian, but he's his views of the New Testament are fairly liberal and when I use that word, meaning like he doesn't see them as reliable as like I would, for instance.
Okay, so it's a bit different.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, man. We appreciate you coming. We're gonna talk to some other guests. Sure. What's the last thing?
Would you ever debate Matt Dillahunty again, or is there something you would add this time?
I'm good, man. I've done it twice. I've moved on. I was supposed to debate him a third time, and he backed out. So I'm kind of like, nah. He was going to be on Cameron Bertuzzi's channel, and it just never happened. So it was going to be on the Resurrection.
But yeah, I mean, you can also.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Would you debate him again, Than?
Him and I, our last conversation that we had, I considered him a really good friend up until recently, and then our last exchange was not the best, and I'm pretty sad about that. If him and I can make amends, and I really want to, I mean that, I would love to debate him again, but I'm more interested in gaining a friend back than debating him at the moment.
Yeah, so there's some personal issues, but like, I mean, if like, say someone with the same like knowledge as Matt Dillahunty, is there anything new you would add to if you were to debate someone like that again?
I mean, rephrase your question again. I'm sorry.
Well, if you were to debate Matt Dillahunty again, because I know you debated him a year ago, was there anything new you would add now, or would it be the same?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably reuse. I have my paper that is coming out soon on animistic congruence. I'd use that again. Yeah, I mean, like, there's new points I would use. I'd probably, yeah, there's new things I would bring up. Because my argument for the resurrection is ever evolving. I probably would change the way I would tackle the priors. I've changed my mind there. So yeah.
The priors, like prior instances of that happening, is that
the prior probability of the resurrection?
Okay. That was it. Thank you for your time, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, man. We'll talk to you later, man. Cool. Let's do some super chats here. Jesus versus law sounds like a good future stream. Yeah, that sounds like a video that would be.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. Do you want me to make a video on that topic?
No, not anytime soon.
Add it to my list. I'm saying, add it to my list.
Not right now.
Not start working on it. I promise.
I can't stand pseudo intellectuals. Me either.
Sorry, should I leave?
Yeah, get the hell out of here. No. So, do atheists have to reject 90% of history? I mean, I have argued that some of them, the way they apply their skepticism to some of the early Christian evidence, yeah. That's why, again, I had that debate with Captain Dadpole and Jim Majors on, was Jesus buried in a tomb? Just look, and just had to watch them constantly explain fact after fact away. Yeah. IP, can you clarify this point for me? Are the Jews still God's chosen even though they rejected our Savior? Yes. They were chosen to be God's light to the nations. That's what Isaiah says. Thank you guys for the work you do. It's such a blessing to watch these streams and other videos as well. Your time and effort, not to mention patience, is truly appreciated. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Okay, let me see here. Who was next? Because some people kept jumping in and out. I think Quetzal was next. You there, man? I'm going to ban that guy. Excuse me. Kashif, are you there?
Hello, Than. Hello, Mike. How are you?
Good. How you doing? What's your religious affiliation?
I feel very bad that you forget me, Mike.
Man, I apologize. I talk to so many people. It's hard to keep up with everyone. Just remind me.
So I'm ex-Muslim, interested in like Christianity and Eastern Orthodox, especially.
Yeah.
Do you remember now?
Now I remember. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah. So where are you at? What's the issue today?
So like I'm like currently also agnostic about existence of God, like seeing all the arguments like ontological argument and different kind of arguments. Like I still can't like make up my mind because it's like a feeling that the entire philosophy could not bridge the gap between what faith does. Like if you have faith and if you have like philosophical argument, your faith triumphs over philosophical argument.
I'm kind of confused on what the issue is and how it relates to the resurrection. Like what's
going on? Sorry. I thought you were asking about what's going right now. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Okay. Yeah, sure. So could I tie the problem I have with resurrection in a story?
Sure.
So basically Alex and Joe Smith had a podcast, and where Joe Smith said that atheists would not say these things, and one of the thing was that atheists said that claims are not evidence. So Joe Smith like taken shot at Matt Dillahunty because it's Matt Dillahunty favorite slogan that claims are not evidence. And you explained that it's wrong. In epistemology, claims are evidence. Like if my friend says that he has a puppy, it's evidence that he might have a puppy. So Matt recently, recently made a response to Joe Smith that saying that claims aren't evidence in epistemology. So like when Mike says that he has like a pet dog, this is not evidence of Mike having a pet dog. So if let's say that apostles testify that they saw Jesus resurrection, it's not evidence that Jesus rose from dead or evidence of resurrection.
I don't know a single philosopher that works in the field of epistemology, specifically within the philosophy of epistemology of testimony, that would echo the idea that because there's a difference between a claim and testimony, right? Testimony is a form of evidence. For instance, you just told us that Matt Dillahunty said something. Now, on the hypothesis that Matt Dillahunty did say such a thing, is the fact that you're sitting here telling me that he said such a thing evidence, or more expected on the hypothesis that he said such a thing? Or is that just something that's completely irrelevant to the conversation?
I mean, like after seeing like the discussion between like the debate between not debate necessarily, but the contention or like the controversy between Matt Dillahunty and Joe Smith, I'm like also confused and agnostic that whether claims or testimony are evidence or not, because like I can see that both sides are correct in some ways. Like I can see example like my friend saying that he is a Superman is not evidence of him being a Superman or something.
Why not?
Okay, I good.
Why not?
Yeah,
No, like, I know that seems like a weird question, right? But you remember how like evidence works. Evidence is not proof. You can have evidence for something, and that can be probability raising, but it could be such a negligible amount, for instance, that it doesn't really mean anything, right?
mhm. I see you were saying that it's evidence, but like so insignificant that it doesn't prove or disprove the statement that he's Superman.
Sure. So like, let's start here. Are you familiar with how like philosophers of science will define or model out evidence?
No, I'm like very ignorant about epistemology and especially philosophy of science.
No problem. That's not a big deal. I would highly recommend checking out those fields. And one, like for instance, one of the standard models of evidence in the philosophy of science, it's called the positive relevance definition. And all that really means is saying, hey, some data point is evidence for a hypothesis H if and only if the probability of the hypothesis given the evidence is higher than the probability of the hypothesis without the evidence.
But I think it's like correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it like in Bayesian paradigm or something? Like it sounds Bayesian, right?
That can be formulated in a Bayesian way, yeah, but that particular formulation is not Bayesian necessarily.
I see. Because like I am not aware about like philosophy of science or like epistemology in general. Like I just finished like a course on mathematics right now, and I will look into epistemology. Then I think I could look in philosophy of science.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. Look into epistemology, philosophy of science, and I would look into the epistemology of testimony specifically. None of those fields are going to support this idea that testimony is not evidence.
But would you agree that
and Kashif, I mean, think about it this way: do you have what is your evidence, for instance, that your parents are your the genetic progenitors of you?
I get like most theists ask this to demean, like they ask you like what is evidence of your parents being your biological parents as something to demean or like to like take shots. But like I don't have necessarily any particular belief about it. Like I mean, like I can have a general attitude, but not as hardcore knowledge.
Can you answer that question again? Because I'm not sure what you're trying to say there.
Yeah, I meant like I have a general attitude or like a belief, as in like attitude, but it for it to be knowledge, I don't have particularly any justification to say it's a knowledge that I know that my parents are my biological parents.
Okay, so maybe we've just diagnosed what the problem is then, right? Because it sounds then like you're okay with saying testimony is evidence, right? But you're more interested in having knowledge, right? Rather than like thinking something is more probable than something else.
Yeah, like I'm also like hate Bayesian epistemology just because like it doesn't give 100% certainty. So I can't even say that I believe in 100% God because Bayesian is like probabilistic, so I can't be even certain about
But
existence of God.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
why I
but why do
like
you need
hate Bayesian
100%
epistemology.
certainty? Why do you need 100%
But
certainty?
I think like it's psychologically something soothing. Like
Do you have
people who are like
100%
certain of
certainty that you're
something.
talking to me right now and not just like an AI?
I mean, no, but I want to have 100% certainty. Like I don't have, but I want to. Like I ought to
Right,
have
but
certainty.
Kashif, and I'm not trying to be a jerk here. That that complaint is like basically saying, "Hey, I'm starving and I got chicken in front of me, but I hate chicken. I'd rather have cheesecake." Like you got
I
what you
see
got,
that.
man. Like right, like we're fallible human beings. Like we're not going to have 100% certainty about next to anything, right? And that's just kind of something we have to come to terms with.
Uh, I can see that, but also like if we apply to like even if there's theist, he like even can't say there's 100% God. Would you agree that's very disturbing for many people to hear that? Even like when I say to people explain Bayesian epistemology and say what's consequence are to their what are their consequences, like you can't even say that you believe in 100% God or 100% in Bible or 100% in Christ. They get like very disgusted or like
Yeah.
horrified.
Yeah, it's because we live in a weird culture where people aren't introspective enough about their own beliefs and thoughts, that their folk epistemology is at odds with what's actually happening in their minds. And then you give
Uh,
them the examples, right? This is what happens with me all the time. You give them the examples of how they don't have 100% certainty in most things, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I guess you're right." And then
I, hmm.
right?
But then we can have 100% certainty in some cases. Like I am certain that I exist. I am certain that laws of logic exist. I am certain about like some of things, and I can build over them and can have certainty on
Well, okay,
different things.
in the interest of the topic, right? Because we're getting a little off topic now. That's fine, right? That's totally compatible with what we're saying. But this is becoming a debate about like Bayesian epistemology and all this other stuff. You don't have to be a Bayesian, right? Like all you have to be okay with is just knowing you're not going to have 100% certainty. It doesn't really matter like what your epistemology is. I think there's some models out there that are going to allow for 100% certainty in a bunch of different areas, and I'm just going to disagree with them, and that's fine, right? But at the end of the day, like this is just kind of the world we live in.
Um, yeah, but like saying that testimony about resurrection, like, like it's like my friend saying that he has a dragon, and another friend saying he has a dog. The friend who is saying that he has a dog is like more reliable because we see instantiation of like people having dog. My friend never lied to me, so there's high chance that he might
Yeah,
have a dog, but I
you're
never
doing
seen a
Bayesian
dragon.
epistemology right now.
Yeah, but like I'm making it the case that we don't see resurrection happening. So even if someone testified that resurrection happened,
Yeah,
so we like can't believe them because we don't see
yeah.
resurrection happening.
So a lot of people believe in abiogenesis, for instance. We don't see abiogenesis happening. We don't see life arising from non-life. All the instances that we do see life arising comes from other places of life. So while you might make the argument, 200 billion people have lived and none have risen from the dead. Well, I'm going to make the argument that 7 septillion life forms have arisen from life before, and we have never observed any of them arise from non-life. So therefore, the prior probability of abiogenesis is so astoundingly low that you can't justify that. Right now, I believe in abiogenesis. All I'm trying to do is I'm showing a counterexample, because what you're doing right now is pointing to something about statistical probability, and again, it's going to get into debates about probability theory.
Yeah,
the basic idea is like, this
because
isn't
I
actually going to be
hmm,
this
because
isn't
like
actually
I
going to be too
can't
probative of a point against
hmm,
the resurrection.
because like I can't like trust that Jesus rise from the dead just because like some people testify that he rise from the dead, because we don't see how can their testimony be reliable, seeing that people don't usually rise from the dead.
Yeah, all you're doing right now is the Humean thing, right? You no
Yeah,
testimonies, like testimonies, weak evidence, low prior probability of miracles,
yeah.
posterior probability is low,
Yesterday,
right?
yeah, the next like the first time I like the second time I come here, I discuss the problem of induction, or like the problem of like believing miracle, and now I'm like having a problems in like miracles. So you can make a cumulative case of why resurrection can't happen. You can make evidence like which David Hume argues that against miracles, like miracles can't happen, philosophical arguments. You can make testimonial evidence, like testimonies are not reliable. And you can even make a claim that new gospels, like new testaments, are not reliable, like historically.
I understand all that. We have a 6-hour series on gospel reliability, right? So like, if you're just willing to entertain that the gospels actually faithfully preserve what the alleged eyewitnesses actually claimed and testified to have experienced when it comes to the alleged resurrection of Jesus, right? Then we'd have about 21 unique eyewitness accounts that are multimodal in nature, on different occasions across the span of 40 days, all that kind of stuff, right? This is happening in a hostile environment where they anticipate suffering, they incur voluntary suffering, there's embarrassing testimony.
Mhm.
You know the argument, right?
Yeah,
Is all
but
of that
could you
testimony?
also
Go ahead.
hmm, could you also enter in the like philosophical problems with miracles, like people who discuss there are philosophical problems with miracles?
Check out a book by John Ehrman, starts with an A, Hume's Abject Failure. I think you might enjoy that one. It's right up your alley, man. I'd say go there.
Yeah. Can I, before going to, can I ask for an advice from you guys?
Sure.
Yeah, so I was watching a video on Aquinas 101 about a story like the soldier who pierced Jesus' body, got blood in his eyes, and I think he was like had some kind of eye disease and it got healed, and he later became a Christian. So can I get baptized and being an atheist or agnostic?
Yeah. Why anyone can get baptized. But I mean, if you're going to get baptized, that's making a profession of faith in God. So you're saying that maybe you're agnostic. I don't know if I can truly accept all this. I don't know if I can, but I want, maybe in your view, the way you're looking at it, you can say like, I do want to have faith in Christ, even if I can't prove he exists.
Yeah, I actually know somebody that was like that. They were an agnostic, but they wanted to follow Jesus if Christianity was true. And they made this explicit with the church that they went to, and they decided to baptize him, and he is a very strong Christian today.
Because I asked like this question to 50 people, 50 different people, and I'm not joking, I literally asked 50 or more people, and they all said no, a big fat no. Like they even like laughed.
They're wrong.
The idea.
Yeah, they're wrong.
I mean, here's the thing. You look at the Israelites. God pulled them out of Egypt and then gave them the law. God saves us first, and then he sanctifies us. So go to Christ, get baptized, and then let him work in you and see what happens, is what I would say.
I see. Because they said it's like wrong or something, and they also said it's disrespectful and blasphemous kind of.
It sounds
That's
like you're
why
just talking to lay
like
Christians and not people that are.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, man, we're gonna
like,
thanks for coming. We got to move on. We appreciate talking with you.
Thanks.
Go get baptized. Next time you come, I hope to hear that happen. It was nice talking with you again, man.
Thank you.
All right, let me
My lats are tight, Mike. Ugh.
Good. Man, I don't know. See a doctor.
No, I just sorry. I'm just complaining.
I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way. Person 1 glances at you with bombastic side eye. Person 2 pinches the top of his nose by the forehead while blowing his head and says, "Get your head out of the gutter." I feel like I'm missing a reference here. I don't know either. I appreciate the super chat though. Rewatch the Jim Majors debate. You destroyed him. Yeah, that was embarrassing, man. I don't. Also, Than, how much for a lecture on bays?
You didn't read the last part.
I'm not reading the last part.
Wait. I'm not going to charge you for that. If people in the Discord server want something on Bayesian epistemology, we can get something scheduled. Happy to do that.
If you want him to like come speak, yeah, it would cost like you pay for his travel.
Oh yeah, I mean like if it's for like a speaking event or something like that, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just assuming you meant like content or something. Like
there's a form on our website you can go through and get all that stuff put in. So go to the website, inspiringphilosophy.com. You can fill out a form for something like that. So check that out. Joe Schmidt claims that claims are evidence, but that's just putting dogma over data. You see? This is the proof. Joe Schmidt is a secret Christian. I don't have any formal training in philosophy, so I'm unsure if I'm making an obvious mistake. Model of Trinity, author, self-inserted character in writing style. Is this metaphor? In this metaphor, we are the characters. No, don't do that, man. No. The Holy Spirit is not a writing style. No.
Wait, is that what's happening here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Father's the author, self-inserted character is Jesus. The Holy Spirit is the writing. Yeah, this is Arianism, modalism, something, man. It's not the Trinity, though. I'll tell you that. David, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm good. I'm fine.
Good.
Yep.
So what's the objection you have to the resurrection?
Okay. So yeah. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah. I just have a couple of points I want to talk about. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is to challenge the claims about the women. I think there's a lot that we say about that I don't think is correct. So the first thing is that the claim is generally like, okay, so we have from Josephus the claim that in the law of court or in the court laws, in the courts, women are not, their testimony are not accepted and things like that. All right, but the problem is that the narrative, the resurrection narratives are not legal proceedings. They are not court cases, right? So I don't think that applies. I don't think you can use something that is basically taking Josephus out of context and using it in a different context. So I don't think that really works. However, I do acknowledge.
Hold on. We didn't just say in court cases the testimony of women was not to be accepted. We pointed out the cultural precedent that women were assumed lower. They were assumed to be dumber than men and that kind of stuff. So people just didn't accept them on a lot of things. So using them as your initial witnesses is very unlikely in that culture is our point. And again, as we pointed out, this was used against the Christians as it was by Celsus, for example.
Yeah, but Celsus only claimed that the women were not reliable. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I understand from Celsus' point of view, I guess maybe like a kind of misogynic way of putting it, but I don't think he's saying it because he's saying that, okay, like I don't think we can say because women have this kind of maybe certain disposition, like the way Asian people might say, that automatically means that they couldn't have made up the story, right? I don't think that really works that way, because even like I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Africa, we have cultures, not everybody, like some people are very old culture that have this kind of very similar ideas. But that does not mean that in certain situation women are not reliable witnesses for certain things. So let's say, for instance, a woman goes to the farm, she experiences something, she
your
runs.
culture. That's not
Just let me finish my
Jewish
point.
culture.
Let me finish my point. Just hold on, I'm getting somewhere. Let's say she comes back, she runs, she experiences this, and she tells the community. They will believe her, even though on a normal day, in other situations, they wouldn't. My point is that in the narrative story, there's no reason why they wouldn't have believed women. Like it's even the culture. Why? Because they are part of a closed system, a closed community, right? And remember, the women are not witnesses to the outside world. They are witnesses to a close community of men. And in fact, in the first gospel, women are not even witness to anybody at all. But in the other ones, yes, they do witness to the men. But remember that they are in a close community. They're not in the outside world. They're not witnessing to the Sanhedrin. They're not witnessing to the general populace. It's a close community of Jews that have been following him for a long time. I'm assuming the women are coming from Galilee. I think there's one gospel that assumes that they're coming from Galilee.
It's very hard
so
to follow
these women are well known to the men. Okay. Let me repeat what I mean. So
just
okay, let me talk slowly.
Summarize because just try to summarize.
Okay, let me summarize. Yeah, the point is that there's no reason why the story couldn't have had women there because the women are well known to the men. They're in a close community. They are not the kind of. I don't see any reason why it's a special thing. Number two, let's not forget that we don't actually know where the gospel authors were written from. Like I know that yes, there is a debate on the authorship and all of that, but it's very possible that a lot of these authors are writing from somewhere outside of Judea where they don't have that kind of limitations. Yeah.
So I was just going to tackle the outside of Judea thing really quickly. There's a thing called onomastic congruence. And the basic idea is we actually have the name frequencies in the Gospels and Acts. And I have a paper in peer review on this topic, by the way. And we've actually been able to take the name distribution of names in Palestine, the Greco-Roman period, all that other stuff, right? And we have been able to geographically situate them and chronologically situate them. So we know what the name distributions were like at the time of and places of the historical Jesus. And we know what they were like in times and places that are not where the historical Jesus was. When we take the data in the Gospels and Acts and take the name frequencies in there is a direct match with the places and times that the Gospels and Acts report to be stories of, right? In other words, there's a match with where you would expect to see if the Gospels are reliable with the names, and there's a mismatch with where you would expect to see them if, like, you're right. So, for instance, the Gospel of Thomas has a different name distribution than what you would expect to see in ancient Palestine, for instance, where Jesus walked and all that stuff. So, sure, is it possible? Sure, but the problem is it's not going to explain the data.
No, I don't think so. I think the women challenge is a bit overplayed. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's a bit overplayed. We don't really know the kind of things that will embarrass someone. I don't think we can say that in a convincing way that will embarrass a group. People have different ideas of what the role women play in the community. So I don't think we can really make that case. I want to say one more thing.
I'm going to be blunt here, David, with what I think is happening here. I just think you're pointing to possibility right now, and that's it.
No, I'm not. So what I'm challenging, hold on, let me say what I'm challenging.
David, we've let you go on long-winded rants for a while, right? All you've done is say, well, this data point and this data point and this data point and this data point is underdeterminate. It doesn't force the conclusion that the women's testimony would have been embarrassing or something like that, right? Now, I can grant that because that's not really what we're trying to say. We're just saying, hey, when we look and survey the context of the time, it seems like the view of women's testimony in general was rather low. And we don't have any evidence against that idea.
Okay, fair enough.
The best explanation of the data is that women's testimony was seen as in a low way in both court and non-court scenarios. Do we have any reason to think that was not the case?
Okay. I mean, I get the general idea, but I just feel that it's not a strong case because we really don't know what would embarrass a group in a particular time. Except I don't think we can use those few data points to make the case. However, I do agree that it's something to acknowledge, but I don't know. But another thing I'll mention is the First Corinthians 15 thing. You mentioned that, I think you quoted into right, and I've heard him say this where, because the women are absent in First Corinthians 15 in the list, so therefore, let's just assume that they wrote the women out of the story because they were embarrassed. But that's actually an argument from silence because it's just as likely to be the other way. That is that when they're writing the creed, hold on, let me finish. When they're writing the creed,
we don't
they have
know
no idea about any women.
David, what I'm trying to say is the audience is having a hard time hearing you. We're having a hard time hearing you. So,
okay.
Yeah, we were interrupting you because we don't know what you're even saying.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll try to, I don't know, is it breaking off or is not loud enough?
You have a little bit of a room echo and your accent is kind of strong. So it's hard to actually get a lot of points across.
Okay. Let me just give me 1 minute.
Listen, why don't you come back some other time? I apologize. Sometimes this happens. It's a lot easier to talk in person. Right now, it just isn't. And people have been complaining.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's just one of those
not even
really
a volume thing. It was the mic was like overexposed, so it caused a lot of distortion and stuff like that too.
Yep, it's unfortunate. And there's nothing wrong with him. People have accents. It's just sometimes it's hard to hear, just because of the way human speech is. Unfortunately,
I'm also very stupid. So
yes, we know. Muslims have told us 1,000 times.
I'm stupid and gay.
Yes. All right. Let me get that set. Okay.
Hurts.
I don't care. Super chats. Does salvation require specific philosophies like moral realism or pro-life too, or is believing in a triune God and Jesus the sole requirement? Believing in God. There's nothing in the Bible that says you have to be moral realist. We argue those beliefs would flow out of Christianity, but that's not required for regeneration and salvation. There's a difference here. It's it's the cause and the effect.
I was under the impression that you have to be a full-fledged Bayesian. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, and a full-fledged Republican, obviously. The parable of the vineyard applies to the Jews. No, is this in regard to my previous question about the God's chosen? It's Michael Patrick Barber points out it's to the Jewish leaders. He points this out in his book, Jesus and the Temple. It's about the Jewish leaders, that they're going to have the kingdom taken away from them and given to the disciples who are Jews. Will you ever respond to the video on modern atheism Richard Carrier did on the gospel reliability series? If we just want to facepalm the whole time, I mean, their whole attempt to debunk automastic congruence was to cite the paper that we cited. So we cited Luke Vandeweghe and Jason Wilson's paper. And in response, Carrier cites the Blaze and Greger paper, but the paper we cited was a direct response to that paper, showing a lot of methodological problems. But that's all they did. It's like, do we really need to? If they're going to cite something that they don't even understand the argument and the research done on it, that was bad. Via super chat, in the Sheffield debate, I got Ehrman to admit James believed Jesus was the Son of God and the apostles believed they saw the risen Jesus. This is based. Awesome. It's pretty good to hear. Honest question. If Jesus is God, then how come the Gospels portray him as being given the authority to do things? Because it's based on how we understand the Trinity. Jesus is ontologically God, but he is essence. He still is begotten of the Father. So everything he has been given to him from the Father. So it's not that he is the Father, he is the Son, and what the Son has comes from the Father. So that would include authority, that kind of stuff. Thank you for the $1. We appreciate it. All right, you ready to bring in the next guest?
Yeah.
What up, man?
Oh, yo. We can't hear you, bro. Check your mic settings.
This is ridiculous. I'm so annoyed.
We still can't hear you.
No, we got nothing. I was really looking forward to this.
There's on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the mic, and then there's like a little up button. Click on that, and then see what your options are there.
Yeah, you click the gear at the bottom. Okay.
Check.
I'm gonna do super chats while you figure this out.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna do. I get what he's trying to say, but the way he's putting it through our culture view we have of women, most of our documents hint to women being undervalued in aspects compared to modern day. Yeah, that's the point we're trying to make. It's like it's a cultural thing. It's that we have so much
testing.
There we go.
Oh,
I was just about to text you.
There we go.
Nice.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now we
that.
can hear you.
Hey guys. Well, I only have like 10, maybe 15 minutes before I have to go pick up my kids, but glad I caught you guys.
Sorry.
I heard
you should have put something in the live chat or the private chat. I would have brought you up earlier.
No worries. I heard your guys' stream that you did with Nick Meter earlier in response to Apologia.
It's
I think I got it right. And yeah, I mean, I agree with Paul on some things. I disagree with him on other things, but I thought your guys' stream was really interesting. One point that you made that I wanted to just give a response to and hear some feedback on is the point about like Paul not offering a there's a missing step in his argument that he's not really explaining, and going from like the possibility of hallucinations to interpreting those hallucinations as resurrection. And why would the disciples do that? Why would they interpret those experiences, subjective experiences, in terms of resurrection without how does Paul actually explain that? I have no idea how Paul would explain that. The way that I have usually seen that ever since reading Schweitzer, because Schweitzer actually says this, and I think Dale Allison follows this to some extent as well, but in Quest of the Historical Jesus, Schweitzer says the psychologists will say that the resurrection experiences, however they may be conceived, are only intelligible as based upon the expectation of the resurrection. And this, again, as based on references of Jesus to the resurrection. And so that fits in with Schweitzer's larger project of seeing Jesus as an apocalyptic prophet and as preaching the imminent inbreaking of the kingdom of God, the disciples expecting the kingdom of God to break in immediately, and the kingdom of God involving, among other things, the resurrection of the dead. And so their interpretation, which Schweitzer would see the resurrection experiences as being visionary in character, and so his argument is that they interpreted those subjective visionary experiences in terms of resurrection because they were expecting the resurrection. And so I just wanted to put that out there and then hear what your guys' thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I can go first if then you want to go next. I have several concerns about it. So, I mean, for one, I would I don't want to go into the whole debate about did they expect the imminent return or not? So let's just table that for now. My first thought would be if they thought that was definitely going to happen within their lifetime, I think they would have placed the resurrection of Jesus along with that experience itself. I don't think they would have been placing it like in terms of their visionary experiences. Again, there's that gap that we were talking about yesterday where I can fully accept that the disciples were like, yes, I can fully accept this idea that they had grief hallucinations, but that's going to be more. I think that if that's the case, they're going to interpret these grief hallucinations with the presence of Jesus is still here. And we know the resurrection is around the corner now, and we're going to be raised with him. That's why we can still feel his presence. It's still here on this earth. That's why he's still here. That's why his spirit is with us. He's going to be doing that soon, and we're going to be doing that kind of thing. That seems to be more in line, I think, with what the expectations would be. not that he actually did already resurrect. And then, of course, I'm going to have questions about some of the other data points that we'll cover, like why was Paul convinced? Why is James convinced? So with that, I feel like with the psychological research that Meter was bringing up yesterday, I don't think that that's going to get them to a physical person walking around. And I think the cultural expectations, which I can grant what Schweitzer's saying there, but I don't think that's going to get them to be like, yeah, Jesus has physically rose. He is here. I think they're going to say his presence is here and he will resurrect soon when this comes.
Okay, interesting. Because Allison argues this too, where he talks about, Paul's language in 1 Corinthians 15 in terms of the first fruits of the dead, or the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep, Jesus' resurrection being the first fruits of the general resurrection. And then in Romans saying the Son of God, who declared to be the Son of God by the resurrection of the dead, and in the Greek that being not Jesus's resurrection from the dead, but actually the resurrection of the dead, and so referring to Jesus's resurrection in the terms of the general resurrection. And then also Schweitzer and Allison both talk about Matthew 27 and the quote unquote zombie apocalypse passage, but that as reflecting, if nothing else, reflecting the expectation of the general resurrection, and so being a tradition that is talking about Jesus's resurrection as part of a larger resurrection, a larger eschatological event. And all of those data points kind of feeding into this larger point about Jesus's resurrection as being a confirmation, a down payment, a presaging, kind of proleptic anticipation of the general resurrection, first fruits of the rest of it as coming just around the corner. And so I know that you didn't want to talk about or get into all of the debate over Jesus as an apocalyptic prophet, but
I mean, we can. I thought you wanted to focus on the resurrection things. I was just trying to focus on that. But I'm fine.
I mean, I think it is that they're related, obviously, but if at least we can talk about the disciples as what is it, Luke 17 or Luke 19, Luke 17:11, I think. No, 19:11. The passage where it says they were expecting the kingdom of God to come immediately. And then obviously in Luke 24 with the disciples saying, oh, we hoped that he would be the one to deliver Israel. That seems to reflect, and then and Acts 1 as well, when is all this going to take place? The disciples, whatever we say about Jesus and his expectation, the Gospels do seem fairly unanimous in painting the disciples as having an expectation for the kingdom of God to come pretty quickly. And, that seems to involve restoration of creation, restoration of Israel, general resurrection. And so given that being the case, isn't there then precedent, speaking in terms of their prior expectation, their cultural, situation, as that they would have reason to interpret visionary experiences or hallucinatory, quote unquote, experiences in terms of confirmation bias to speak to and confirm their prior expectation for the kingdom of God, which included physical resurrection of the dead?
So I have two things that I want to, and I'm going to try to condense everything just because I know you said you have limited time. Part of this is going to depend on how we're modeling the Gospels, because that's going to be really important, because that's going to answer the question, like, what is the data we actually need to explain, right? Because there's going to be a disconnect between us and you, because we think the Gospels are reliable, and I'm assuming you take some sort of a legendary development theory or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say the Gospels are reliable in some places, less reliable in others,
Sure.
but as it gets to the resurrection narratives, less reliable.
Yeah, so if you're willing to conditionalize and kind of give answers depending on like this model and this model, maybe that'd be helpful there. And then the second question I was going to have is more of a clarifying question, because then how would this fit with your cognitive dissonance theory? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but with the cognitive dissonance theory and for explaining things, this is a necessary part of this is going to be like reinterpretation of things that have actually happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's actually a prior precedent for belief in the resurrection, that means that cognitive dissonance cognitive dissonance isn't actually going to explain belief in the resurrection, right? Because why would there would be no need to reinterpret whatever they experienced. The cognitive dissonance, the scope of that.
Interpreting what they experienced in terms of resurrection is a way that is what enables them to double down on that prior expectation. And in spite of the ambiguities of their experience and the fact that the kingdom of God, as they previously expected it, has not broken in, the restoration of creation is not happening, the restoration of Israel, et cetera, is not happening. And the death of Jesus, I think, being something that they did not expect, belief in resurrection, in the resurrection of Jesus as the first fruits of the general resurrection, enables them to hold on to that prior expectation and say that it's not that it is not fulfilled, it's that it is partially fulfilled, awaiting full fulfillment in the future. So they didn't expect the resurrection of one person of the Messiah prior to the general resurrection, but they then develop this new belief in the resurrection of the Messiah prior to the general resurrection.
Gotcha.
As a way of reducing dissonance.
So
if that makes sense.
So I totally get where you're coming from. I think it's not the type that we would expect to see, going back to my other theory, which is that we would expect them to be like, yes, he was defeated, but this is part of God's plan, and that general resurrection is coming soon, and he's going to raise up. And we know this is going to be the case because we can still feel his presence here on earth. It's any day now. The trumpets will sound, he will rise first, and we will rise with him. Because as you just acknowledged, they didn't have this idea that there was going to be this other resurrection prior. I feel like they would interpret that in the way that we're having as we see, like the way the hallucinations tend to be interpreted when people think they're real. It's that I can feel the spirit here with us. Like going on to one of the points I brought up yesterday, when we bring up Herod Antipas thinking that John the Baptist rose from the dead, it's because there was a real person walking around. Unless there was a real person walking around, I don't think they're going to go, yes, resurrection has happened. We're totally shocked by this. And then, of course, we then have to add on top of that an explanation for the James and the Paul conversion aspect. But just sticking with the disciples for now, I think that's a simpler thing we should have expected based on that, not this resurrection idea.
Okay. I do have to get going, but this would be a really great conversation to follow up on. If you guys ever want to have like a longer conversation, I would love to do that. But if you ever have a chance, this would be a really great book for you to interact with. It's by Yoram Biliu, and the title is With Us More Than Ever: Making the Absent Rebbe Present in Messianic Chabad.
Can you put it on? Made you full screen. Can you put it on there so I can just see it there?
Cool.
So it's about the Lubavitcher movement, and specifically the Messianic wing of the Lubavitcher movement, who followed Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, who, there was a lot of, probably the largest Messianic movement since Sabbatai Zevi in the 17th century. And probably one of the three largest Messianic movements, if you put Jesus, then Sabbatai Zevi, and then Menachem Schneerson. Those are probably the three biggest Jewish Messianic movements. But this book is ethnographic data following this group of people, and after the death of the Rebbe, and it just chronicles a lot of visionary experiences. He's cautious about using the word hallucination, but he does engage with some of the psychological literature on that.
No, I will definitely check that out, because it can.
Yeah.
There is part of the series I want to do on the resurrection is
and
dealing with things like,
it's a messianic movement, it's an eschatological movement, and some of the Lubavitchers did interpret his occlusion or his departure, his being absent from them, in eschatological terms as only an apparent absence. Some of them use the language of resurrection, and then there has been a lot of apparitions of him, many apparitions. That is one of the prime. There's a whole chapter on it in this book. And so really interesting stuff in terms of cognitive dissonance theory.
No, we'll definitely check that out. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
I texted you. We can.
Oh,
if
sweet.
If you're down, if you're down, let's just.
Yeah. No, I'd love to. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, I really wanted to. If he had more time, I'd want to really press him on, okay, how does this explain the empty tomb? How does this explain James and Paul? How does this explain them immediately proclaiming it in Jerusalem? How does this explain them willing to, like all the other facts surrounding the resurrection? And again, I don't think it fits with the messianic expectations, because I think if they were so bent on Jesus still being the Messiah, which again wasn't necessary, I think they would have just said, well, his spirit is still here and the resurrection is going to happen any day now. I think that's a much easier way to explain that than saying, no, there really was a physical resurrection. But didn't have much time. Maybe at some point you and him, or you and I, can have a conversation directly.
Excuse me. Yeah. We'll probably just have a private chat next week.
Cool. Where was I on these super chats? I get what he's trying to say, but the way he's putting it through our cultural views we have of women. Most of our documents hint that women being undervalued in aspects compared to modern day. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Got to look at the women in that cultural lens. Thank you for becoming a channel member. Much appreciated. People need to read more N.T. Wright, Resurrection of the Son of God, and Surprised by Hope. Yep. I've been a while since I've read those books for sure. But they're both pretty good books. IP, your session at the Blessed God Summit was amazing. Hopefully you have another session next year, because we plan to make it in person. We couldn't go this year because we adopted our 2 foster children that weekend. Well, that is definitely a worthy reason to not go. I forgive you for that, but you better come next year with the children. Okay. Otherwise I won't forgive you. Okay. But that's awesome to be that you're doing that. I wish I could adopt as well. So yeah, good to see that's happening for sure. And yeah, the session was definitely amazing. Than missed it because he's a loser.
Why would I want to come listen to you talk?
That's a good point. I wouldn't either.
I hear you talk every week.
It's hard on you, yeah. Let's bring up Scott here. Scott, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. What's going on?
Okay,
you got a good radio voice, my man.
Cool, man. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Good to hear it. Look, I'm just calling to maybe you guys can put me through a little stress test on my on one of my views. Like I'm not a theist. I don't really believe in a personal God, so therefore I'm not a Christian. But I am a non-dualist idealist. Not sure if you're familiar with any of that, but basically I kind of
do you know who I am, sir?
A little bit. Seen you around the block.
Well, by non-dualism, it's hopefully this isn't a derogatory term to you, Scott. It's like the new age stuff. So like making non-evaluative judgments about the world and stuff like that.
Yeah. Scott, you should you're saying you're an idealist?
Correct.
Yeah, you should check out my channel. I've got a ton of videos arguing idealism is true.
Oh, cool. So we
like
got
all of these on the
already.
Screen. Yeah, all these on the screen are some of my videos on idealism.
Oh, perfect. I will definitely check that out. I did subscribe to your channel. I just haven't had a chance to look into. I used to be a Christian.
Okay.
And I'm interested in apologetics and epistemology and philosophy and all that good stuff. But I'm not going to try to hold you for any kind of argument or, anything like that. But basically just to kind of get your view, because, as I'm kind of persuaded that reality is fundamentally mental or experiential.
Yep, it is.
So maybe the difference here is that I don't think we need to really posit a fully meta-conscious personal God at the ground level. I'm more persuaded by a non-reflective field of subjectivity, if you will. That basically an argument from sufficiency, something more parsimonious. I kind of appeal to Occam's razor. So I don't want to really.
What's at the fundamental base level? What is subjective down there then?
Yeah. So that's the thing that I understand would need explaining, like the existence of experience.
Right. Something's got to be experiencing. If experience is the base
of something. Right. Exactly. Christian, I guess Christian idealism is what you'd maybe identify with. So basically, you're saying that there's a metaconscious personal God that would have like beliefs, knowledge, intentions, all that good stuff.
Yep. I think that's the most rational thing. This is what boggles my mind when I read like Bernardo Kastrup. I'm like, if we're arguing that idealism is true, I don't see how you. Here's a good way to explain this. When I was getting my master's degree, I took a philosophy of mind course. We had to give a presentation. Mm-hmm. And so on anything we discussed on the course, anything we were interested in related to philosophy of mind, this was the seminar that I was taking. And I met with my professor, great guy, great professor, super intelligent. And I was like, I want to make a case for idealism. And so he's like, okay, yeah, explain to me your view. And so I started going, and he's like, wait a minute. I was just explaining basic idealism. And he's like, wait a minute. This is just traditional religiosity. Are you okay with that? I'm like, yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. Right. It's like, if you're going to argue for idealism, I don't see how you get away from a theistic worldview, because it seems like just flow there.
Yeah. I get it. I do understand where you're coming from. It's just, I guess what I'm trying to avoid is explaining why God has the specific, mental structures that he would have, like explaining why is God personal rather than impersonal. The problem of intention, psychology, divine hiddenness, problem of evil is really big here. It just seems easier to argue for an idealism that kind of avoids all of that stuff. So for me, I guess a non-reflective field explains consciousness without needing to explaining any sort of psychology of that field or intentionality.
Well, I think that what you kind of brought up are just other issues. Like it's like, for example, if I were to say, like, if I was arguing with someone, like a young Earth creationist, and I say, look, we have a ton of evidence for evolution. And he goes, yeah, but what about, this aspect? Like, how do you explain how whales evolved? I'm like, well, hold on. That's another issue. That doesn't mean the evidence we don't have for evolution is wrong. It just means we haven't accounted for everything yet. And if we have an idealist reality that seems to be pointing to theism, we go, okay, we've got a great working theory, theistic idealism. Maybe we've not worked all the kinks out. I'm fine saying that. But, that doesn't mean the evidence we have that leads us to there is wrong. So, like, you bring up things like problem of evil, divine hiddenness. I'll refer you to the channel where we've got videos on the problem of evil, videos on divine hiddenness as well.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely take a look at it. And I guess let me ask you, like, because you had mentioned that, you have to have something to be conscious of to have some sort of awareness. Like, what are you aware of? I guess my issue there is that there's a hidden assumption that maybe consciousness requires reflection, but, reflection is something consciousness does, not necessarily what it is. Like, say, like animals and infants, for example, like they can experience without thinking about their experience, for example, right? Does that work, or how does that not work?
So for animals specifically, is that what we're going to focus on?
Yeah, because if you think about it, I'm kind of bottoming out to like the most simplest form of some kind of condition for any kind of experience to or self-reflection to arise out of, right? And so maybe looking at something simpler than metaconscious humans, kind of like a puppy dog or a bat, like, something that we don't really assume has that sort of self-consciousness.
Well,
we know those things exist.
I mean, in one way, Christianity kind of resolves this. God is triune. The Father's aware of the Son is aware of the Father, they're aware of the Holy Spirit eternally. So you have that awareness there, and you have three conscious persons of one God. So, I mean, if that's an issue, boom, the Bible's right there.
So do you have a video that kind of outlines how that actually solves that issue, or maybe possibly?
No, I don't know. Not on that specifically, because it's not really something I've focused a lot on. What I focus mostly on when it comes to idealism is just arguing idealism is true. Because most of the people that I deal with are going to be like losers like Than over here, who's a substance dualist, and just trying to convince him that
I just defend idealism and dualism.
See, I told you he's a loser. Like, he's defending substance dualism. It's weird. So,
in a way, I kind of understand, because I feel like dualism is where you're going to derive all meaning and purpose and stuff like that. I mean, it is part of our experience.
Well, that's why I'm a
specifically. Hold on. There's a disconnect right there. But by dualism, I'm talking about philosophy of mind, not dualism in terms of like what you're thinking about. Dualism is just making a distinction between the material world and the mental world.
And I follow the philosopher Keith Ward, who's an idealist. He coined the term dual aspect idealist. So in dual aspect idealism, you have consciousness and you would have information. So that solves that issue as well. You're a conscious agent who is aware of various forms of information, whether they're your thoughts, your experiences, your memories. So you have the dual aspect is there. It's just not substance dualism.
Gotcha. So like, say in the Bible, I guess in Ecclesiastes, it talks about how, body returns to dust, spirit returns to God. How does that turn out to be non-dualistic?
Well, I wouldn't say it necessarily is non-dualistic, because you still have the information that makes up your physical body and the conscious agent. There's just a split from that information with the conscious agent.
I see. Is that like a split at the relativistic level, or do you like, I guess what I'm getting at, a lot of folks talk about, at the quantum level, you've got, you don't have causation as such. You don't have time as such. You don't have, there's no distinctions as such. But then at the relativistic level, we have time, we have causation, we can talk about. Or is that kind of what the scripture is pointing to? Is that the relativistic level, right? Or is that how you see it? Maybe.
I mean, I would.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say because we're not conscious agents at the quantum level in that sense either. We are classical, and we are experiencing a classical world. So when we die, the conscious agent splits from the body in the sense that the information that we were experiencing, we are cut off from. And that's what happens. But I wouldn't say that conscious agent goes away. I would say they continue with their memories, thoughts, personality, that kind of stuff. But they get cut off from the experience and the information of the body.
Gotcha. And I agree. There's definitely a disassociation. Like, I'm disassociated from what I was doing last Tuesday at 2:00. I can't remember that crap. So I believe in that kind of disassociation. But I guess, wow, I've got so many questions. I don't want to take up too much time.
Well, does this have anything to do with the resurrection, which is the kind of the topic?
Yeah, well, it's sort of attacking the fundamental to the resurrection. I mean, for one thing, in my own personal experience, and I guess it's called a miracle for a reason. It's not a norm. It's an extraordinary event by definition. It's not something that we would expect to see every day, a person rising from the dead after 3 days. And so for me to believe something like that, it seems like I would have to have some sort of maybe convincing argument for it. Like, obviously we can't get in the time machine and go back and check it out, but I've heard, so many arguments over the years, and I'm sure you guys have heard them all too, based on what I've heard your conversation so far. And we can talk about priors and the Bayesian inferences and all of this kind of stuff, all the prior stuff that goes into it. And I'm trying to really stay away from that because I don't really put a whole lot of stock into my own rationality when it comes to big questions like that, because who says that humans necessarily understand how reality really works at that level? So I'm not going to really sit there and say, hey, I'm smarter than that. I understand that, but it seems like there should be some sort of convincing, I don't know, for me personally, to really wrap my head around that.
I don't know how you're going to have this conversation without talking about the prior probability.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just not going to, you're not going to become convinced if there is no prior probability. It's not like, I'm assuming since you brought up Bayesianism, you know some of the language I'm using here now, right? But how are you going to get a posterior probability without a prior probability?
Yeah. And I guess if I'm honest, I'll just say that it's not part of my experience. And I don't really have a motivation to believe in it anymore like I used to as a child. And, I know that's not a very rational maybe approach, or, just because we don't see that motivation.
Yeah, right, bro. Look, this is one of the reasons I actually really love Bayesianism, is because you get to bring your background knowledge to the table. I get to bring my background knowledge to the table. We work together to have an upper and lower bound on the prior probability. And then we can go, great, given that, what does the data do? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a you versus it's not a my prior versus your prior thing. It's when done correctly, I think it can be really collaborative. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I'm with you. Yeah, it's not with it's not in my normal experience that people raise from the dead, right? But there's going to be other things that affect the prior probability still, right? Because if just saying something as simple as it doesn't happen frequently, I've never experienced it, stuff like that, right? Well, I'm sure you can think of tons of counterexamples to that line of reasoning, right? Like, at that point, the first time events for anything could never be justified. Like,
and usually,
like imagine I just invented the spring, Scott, and a spring has never been sprung before, and I go up to you, Scott, and I go, okay, look, you know about the way the world works, all this other stuff, and I'm compressing this, you can see the tension building, and I go, what do you think the prior probability is that when I let go, it's going to do like spring stuff, right? Even though this has never happened before, right? You're going to be like, yeah, that's really high,
right?
So there's going to be other things that affect how we might assess the prior probability of the resurrection. Part of that is just going to be how we model out what we think reality is like, and if there's a God or not, and what things are good or bad and stuff like that. So for instance, like, if in my background knowledge, I have this idea that a God exists, and I also think that this idea of like joining in with your I'll say subordinates, for lack of a better term right now, right? Joining in with their experience is a good thing, worthwhile thing, much like a lieutenant joining in with his crew in a house fire, if in the fire department or something like that, right? I might predict that given theism and this one little truth came about, like what's good and bad, that God would become incarnate, right? And that's going to raise like the probability of God becoming incarnate then, and I would argue something like a resurrection happening. And there's more things that we can kind of build upon this, but all I'm trying to do right now is just kind of show like there's a structure of reasoning you can employ that I think shows that the prior is not going to be that low. And I think you can also point to like modern day miracle accounts that I think are pretty strong to show that the prior probability for like miracles in general is not going to be too low.
Modern day miracles? What are you referring to?
So for instance, like Barbara Snyder, if you've ever heard of her, she, I think in the 1970s, she was diagnosed with MS. It got progressively worse. By the time 1981 comes around, she was as close as you can get to like the end of the disability scale. She's a paraplegic. She has 2 paralyzed organs. She's wheelchair bound. She's blind. All this stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 16 years later. Eventually, as a last ditch effort, and she's in hospice, mind you.
I got a better idea. Why don't we do? You just want to play your video?
It's not out yet.
Yeah. Just play it now.
And was she a Christian? Was she a Christian believer?
Yeah, she was a Christian. But Mike's going to play a video that's not out yet. So
okay.
If prayer does nothing, what do you do with cases like this? Meet Barbara Snyder. She had progressive MS for 16 years. Her symptoms started in the 1960s, and by the time the 1970s came around, her respiratory system began to deteriorate, and she was constantly hospitalized due to asthma. By 1981, she was completely bedbound. Her diaphragm's paralyzed. She was on a breathing tube, nearly blind, unable to swallow, and her body was severely deformed. Doctors rated her condition near the maximum disability level and placed her on hospice care. Then on June 7th, 1981, her family gathered to pray. While lying in bed, she hears a voice, "Get up and walk." In a literal leap of faith, she stands up, pulls out her breathing tube, and within minutes, her sight returns, her breathing normalizes, and she's walking. Within the same day, we have many people witnessing and testifying to seeing the former paraplegic now walking. This includes her walking up to her doctor, and he stops all treatment and says he's never seen anything like it. Follow-up reports confirm this. No signs of MS, no neurological deficits, nothing. If you want to say this wasn't a miracle, then you have a problem. MS does not suddenly reverse. Multiple biological systems don't all at once spontaneously heal. She had neurological issues, respiratory issues, muscular issues, optical issues, you name it, all within the context of prayer going away. And she lived another 40 years with no relapses in her MS. So if you're skeptical of prayer and you're skeptical of miracles, here's my question to you. If miracles don't happen, if prayer does not work, what happened here?
So that video is going to come out soon. I just figured let's play it now for people watching. Why not?
And so you saw quotes from medical reports in there. There's medical reports that there's a picture of. We have, I have other reports too that I can pull up if you want to. But basically, like we have the medical reports of her having MS and her visits with the Mayo Clinic and other stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And she was prayed for, and within moments, she's getting up and walking. She's dancing for the first time in 16 years with her father. You get the point. Mm-hmm. And there's other cases that I can point to that I think are really strong. But I think miracles do happen. And so something like, if you're convinced that something like this, I think that's going to be really strong reasons for thinking that the prior probability of the resurrection is not going to be that crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. And, you know, I sort of generally I try to be in a healthy way, to be a skeptic, not hyper skeptic, but to be a healthy skeptic, and even be skeptical about my own skepticism, so forth and so on. You know, and I try to apply Humean skepticism, you know, that we have regularities and patterns in nature. We also have liars. We also have exaggerators. We also have, but then there's also stories of, you know, Christian miracles. There's Hindu miracles. There's those in Islam that testify to such miracles. And then there's also explanations, like, I don't know if you're familiar with perennialist philosophy. They would say that a lot of mystical experiences, healings, NDEs, things of that nature, these sort of extraordinary experiences exist within all different religions. And then there's these commonalities among them all I haven't looked at every one of them, but say, let's just pretend, I don't know if this is true, but say if there was something similar to the example you just showed in the video for a Muslim or a Hindu that was just as comparable, how would you explain that? Would you say like, well, Satan, came as an angel?
The first thing I would say is that, okay, well, at this point, atheism is toast. There's definitely a God. The question is now what do we do with all this data? There could be that case as well. The thing is, though, in reality, I'm not aware of cases like that.
Yeah. So Scott, to answer your question, because I have searched.
Yeah.
For like miracles is one of the things that I'm actually like really interested in. It's one of those topics where like in the academic world, philosophers love me, but at the same time they get really annoyed with me sometimes because I talk about miracles, because it's like one of those, how academics are sometimes. It's like you have those disciplines where it's like, okay, but we don't talk about that, right? And miracles is one of those things, because at the end, like I had, and I'm not going to name names here. I had an agnostic philosopher who's very well respected, and I gave him a case recently, and he literally goes, "Look, my explanation is going to be really strained here, and I don't know. I don't know what else to do here." And I gave him. We were talking about the miracle of Fatima, and he's like, "I know this like doesn't work with the mathematics, and I know this doesn't work with this stuff, and blah 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 blah. But like, God doesn't exist, so this couldn't have been a miracle." And the whole entire point I'm trying to make is, this is a field that I'm very interested in. I've done a lot of work here, and one of my friends, Caleb Jackson, has done even more work on this topic than I have. I'd highly recommend checking him out. But in all of my work, I've never come across a non-Christian case where the force of the evidence matches what we find in some of these Christian cases. If that makes sense. If such a case did come about, I'm gonna have to look at it first of all and ascertain everything. So let's just grant like something actually did come up. I think Christianity has the explanatory flexibility to deal with it, because Christianity teaches, I think the Bible teaches, that there are false gods out there. There are rebelling little g gods that can do these types of things. I mean, look at Moses when he's confronting the Egyptians. They make snakes out of their staffs and all this other stuff. And so, I think that's going to be like, that's like a two-layered response there, right? It's like, one, I haven't seen any cases, and two, I think it fits within the Christian worldview.
Gotcha. And I suppose uncertainty is something that affects us all. I mean, we could all just be in the matrix and somebody's back. Some little kids playing tricks on everybody. There's always that possibility, but we try to infer to the best explanation, I suppose. Yeah. And I guess you're giving me a lot to think about. I'll check it all out, and I'll look at your videos and go through them. I haven't had a chance. I'm kind of busy, but yeah, I'll check it all out, man. I appreciate you stress testing me there and helping me.
Yeah, happy to do it, man.
I want to believe in God. I want to so bad.
You do. Scott, you're an idealist,
man. I would. Of course, well, he's a non-dualist idealist. Scott, I wish we had more time, man. Because if we did, I think you and I could have a really fun discussion on which model of reality would be better, like the theistic. We could even just do like an idealism theistic framework versus the idealistic non-dualistic framework. And I think we would have a really fun discussion there. So
I do a YouTube show. I have a YouTube channel, and I do shows every Saturday and Sunday. In fact, one of the guys that comes on and hosts, he's a Christian idealist as well. So I'm open to it, and we have these kind of talks. So yeah, either way, anytime you want to link up one way or the other on your channel, it doesn't matter. I'm open to learn.
Yeah, bro. Shoot me an email if you ever want to talk. Than@inspiringphilosophy.com.
Okay, we'll do it, sir.
All right,
cool.
Catch you later.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Awesome. Let's do these quick super chats and we'll bring in our next guest. You know what's a miracle with extraordinary evidence? The fact that we're talking about something 12 people believed in, debating about it 2,000 years later. Yeah. Changed the freaking world for the better. That's another argument I want to try to develop, is an argument for Christianity. I don't want it to be like, I already
used that to increase the prior probability of the resurrection, Mike.
That Christianity has helped drastically change the world.
So basically, here's the argument. Suppose that there's a God that exists, right? Or if you want to grant it, then you can ask the question like, okay, so we have this observation that Christianity has caused much good in the world, right? Now you can ask the question, okay, so if God is going to endorse some sort of a religious system and he has foreknowledge of what sort of religious system would cause so much good for the world, it seems like Christianity would be a contender for endorsement, right? For like the type of revelation God would want to bring about. He knows that Jesus' resurrection would accomplish that. So you can make the strings of inferences there to say that like God, the prior probability of God wanting to endorse Christianity by the resurrection of Jesus, you get the point, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You get the inference.
And if you don't believe us, watch this playlist we have on the channel. Christianity changed the world in so many ways. It ended slavery, gave value to children, unlike before. It created human rights. It educated the world, created science, ended pederasty around the world. That's what this video is about. Just a lot of really good that came out of Christianity. It's hard to really just cover it all. But yeah, I check that out if you're interested. We got a lot of stuff on there. Realize that people don't tend to engage with arguments, i.e. problem of evil, pointing towards God's existing simply because it seems to be something they can use against religious people, not God. Yeah, I see your point there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they don't tend to use that.
Person.
They can. Yeah. Does the Bible teach some people will be richer in heaven than others? No, I don't think riches are going to be there, man.
I don't know about you, but God told me I'm so special that I'm going to be super wealthy and I'll be able to go Super Saiyan.
Listen, if you want to have immense wealth in heaven, brothers and sisters, I have a message for you. You need to donate a seed into this ministry here, a seed of $1,000, my fellow brothers and sisters, into this ministry, and you will have immense riches in heaven. I mean, immense riches in heaven, sir. So donate your seed into this ministry today, and you will see overflowing riches in the pearly gates. Can I get an amen, brothers? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Guys, you're supposed to put in the live chat, amen. Gosh. All right. Basher, we finally have a Muslim here. How you doing today?
Hi guys. How's it going? Can you hear me?
We're good. You said in the private chat you're a Muslim?
Yeah, I'm a Muslim. But I've been actually looking into the Christian claims of the resurrection, and I find it interesting that I actually saw this on my YouTube feed. So I popped in to have a discussion about it. So the Christian claim of the resurrection is I actually didn't know, because of what I've been reading. I found out that actually Paul was actually talking about this in his letters. Don't you find that interesting? So it's actually not a claim that came later. It actually precedes the writing of even the synoptic gospels.
Yep.
So when I found that out as a Muslim, I had to engage with it, because there are things that I accept about the life of Jesus, peace be upon him. He was born of a virgin.
Beast.
But he was born of a virgin. The historical secular evidence points to him being crucified, but we would expect that, because the Quran says that Allah made it appear that he was crucified. And the other thing we do know is that John the Baptist baptized him. But the claim about the resurrection is it's not something that just came about. So it's something that we just can't throw out that easily. But I'm still not inclined to believe it for many reasons.
You're just to add to what's going. You're absolutely correct. The creed that Paul cites in 1 Corinthians 15, I mean, like Gerd Ludemann says that's like within 2 years of the crucifixion. Like this is something that's extremely early. And it mentions James, the brother of Jesus. So Muslims like to bring up James sometimes as if he's somehow like a Muslim. But I mean, like he believed in the resurrection according to this very early creed. He's one of the witnesses to it. So we have a problem. If the Quran says that the disciples were Muslims and that, you know, that it was only appeared to be crucified, but the earliest disciples, the eyewitnesses of Jesus, were preaching the resurrection, the crucifixion. They were preaching Christianity, basically. They weren't preaching Islam. They were preaching what we have in Christianity long before Paul. And it's not even like
James.
Go ahead.
Was James part of the 12? He wasn't part of the original 12.
He wasn't part of the original 12. That's actually evidence for the resurrection, because here's James, who's the brother of the Lord, who's not one of the 12, not an actual follower of Jesus during his ministry. You tell me what it would take to make you believe your brother is the risen Lord and Messiah. It's going to take a lot. James wasn't convinced during the ministry, but then after Jesus died, something happened that convinced them that Jesus was Lord and the risen Messiah. That had to be something quite powerful. So that's the point that is made. This is actually evidence for the resurrection. The fact that James converted on that, not that he was a disciple during Jesus's lifetime.
Yeah. That's a strong point. The same with Paul. Now, I believe that the Christians, they may have had visions. I think Paul actually did see a vision of, because the transformation was pretty extreme. He was not someone who was a layman. He was very educated in the Hebrew scriptures. In fact, if you actually read First Corinthians, he actually says that Jesus died for sins. Like, so the theology was already quite developed by that point. But what I would say is they didn't see Jesus physically. I don't believe the Christian claim that they actually saw Jesus physically. I think that the narrative of Jesus being resurrected is more of a vision, right? A vision from a vision. It's not the first time it has happened that we have these sort of claims in false religions. For example, we have in Mormonism, the Mormons believe that Brigham Young transfigured into Joseph Smith, and they have hundreds of witnesses who attest to this. So I can't in good faith just accept the Christian claim that easily.
Do you think that visionary? So do you think they were hallucinating as the disciples? Is that what you're saying? Or do you think they actually saw a vision from a god or something?
I don't know. I don't know what it was, because this
was the subject of the stream we did yesterday. Mostly, it's that when people like in studies on hallucinations. Let me just put one of my slides back up from earlier. So this is Nick Meter. He was on the channel yesterday. So he's talking about a lot of these different types of experiences. Typically, most of these visionary experiences happen in one mode. They're going to happen in sort of like, they'll be visual, they'll be tactile, verbal, auditory, these kinds of things. It's very rare they're going to have multimodal experiences. But even in that, most know they're seeing a vision or a hallucination. Some will reinterpret them as like, okay, my loved one, the spirit of my loved one was really in the room with me. That happened. So they'll say that, but they won't say the person rose from the dead, like they physically got up and walked out of the grave. There's a quite logical leap from having a vision experience to thinking somebody rose from the grave. On top of that, as you've acknowledged, the creed in 1 Corinthians is early, but notice it talks about Jesus appearing to the disciples, plural. As modern research has shown, there is no evidence that we have any evidence of group hallucinations occurring. So you have to explain why the disciples had not just visions, but group hallucinations. and they all experienced the same thing. And then they interpreted that in a way that people don't interpret hallucinations. They don't interpret them as the person got out of the tomb and have walked in here. Like they don't do that. They say, yeah, we sensed the spirit. We felt the presence. He's with God in heaven. But we can still feel his presence or his spirit kind of thing. It's very different than physically, hey, we got a body walking around here. And then on top of that, we need to explain why there was an empty tomb.
Yeah, the claim of the crucifixion, right, is pretty extraordinary as you're claiming. Now, as Paul said, we just have to look at the words of Paul, right? He says, if Christ didn't rise from the grave, then your faith is meaningless, right? Why is it that the Old Testament doesn't prophesy this if this is the cornerstone of Christian faith?
Oh, good. I will show you. It's actually in that same letter, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Paul talks about it here. Let me pull it up here for you. Yes, there it is. Okay, so let me share my screen here. Paul addresses this very thing. So, where is it? I just saw it here. Hold on. It was right in front of my face. There it is. Is it in chapter 2? Maybe in chapter 2. So what Paul basically says is that if the rulers had known, they would not have crucified the Lord. What he's basically saying is, oh yeah, it's in chapter 2. My mistake. Let me fix that for you. So I'll just show you the verse here. But we impart a secret and hidden wisdom of God, which God decreed before the glory of all ages. So God had planned this before the ages. None of the rulers of this age understood this, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Now, he uses a very interesting term here. He calls him basically Yahweh, because Yahweh is called the Lord of glory in the Psalms. But what he's basically saying is if people had known the plan of God, they would have tried to prevent it. So God didn't really reveal this explicitly in the Old Testament. There are hints to it. Go to like the book of Zechariah. Go to Isaiah 53. There are hints of this, but it's not explicitly stated so that no one would interrupt the plan of God or try to intervene.
But one of the main Christian claims is I actually know Christians who've been converted to Christianity because of Isaiah 53. Like it's not very subtle, right? After the life of Jesus, it kind of almost points to him directly. Now, it's almost predicting the death of Jesus, but it doesn't say anything about the resurrection, right? That's what. So the main pillar of Christian faith is not just that Jesus died. It's also that he rose from the grave. But there's no foreshadowing of that the Messiah is going to rise from the grave or anything like that. The people, you could say that the people could prevent the death of Jesus had they known. There's absolutely nothing they could do to prevent Jesus from rising from the grave.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing about it. Isaiah 53 is very clear in light of Christianity. I think prior, though, you may not be entirely sure how this was going to play out when it comes to the death of Jesus. So there is that aspect as well. There are hints of it in Isaiah 53, though. So it says the Lord will prolong his days. He shall see his offspring. And we know that word see there is often used for those who are not direct biological heirs, but those who are of the faith or of the full mission. I'm trying to think of how the term is used in when Old Testament scholars use, but it can refer to those who are, born with sort of within him or within his movement kind of thing. Probably butchering how it's been used, but you get the idea. So we do see some kind of instances that, hey, yeah, this person is going to be, this servant, this representative of Israel is going to be crushed, but that's not going to be the end of it. He shall see his offspring. He shall see his days prolonged.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and read Isaiah again. But
it's verse 10. Verse 10 is it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief when his soul makes an offering for guilt. Yet he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand.
Oh, all right. Could I ask you about? I think someone else has already talked about this, but John the Baptist. People claim that he rose from the dead after he had died.
So this shows up in the Gospels. We had just talked. You should watch the stream we did yesterday after you get off here. We talked about this. So here's the thing that's weird about this. This is like people will bring that up as like evidence against the resurrection. But here you have Herod hearing about a man walking around doing miracles. And his first thought is, that must be John the Baptist who rose from the dead. Okay, well, why would he make that conclusion? Because there was an actual person walking around doing miracles. So something extraordinary had to have happened. If when Jesus died, people just had visions, they wouldn't jump to the idea of a resurrection because there was no person walking around, like with the analog we had just discussed about people thinking John the Baptist was thinking Jesus was resurrected John the Baptist. So see the difference there. If they just had visions after Jesus died, they're not going to go, yes, resurrection. Herod can make that assumption because there's an actual body walking around.
Wait, so Herod, he thought that Jesus was John the Baptist, or?
Yeah, he thought that when he first heard of Jesus doing miracles, he's like, this must be John the Baptist raised from the dead.
Yeah, the reason I believe in Islam and I reject the Christian accounts is because the claim of resurrection in the Roman context wasn't unique. We look at Nero after he died. Many people believe that he was also going to come back. It's even in Revelation as well.
It is, yeah.
So and Herod himself had believed that John the Baptist could rise from the dead. I believe what had happened was the Christian community was traumatized after the death of Jesus, peace be upon him. Many of his followers began to deify him. I think the strongest points from the resurrection are the two people who you've mentioned, Paul and James, but they never met him. No, James met him physically, but they never saw him rise physically, right?
Technically nobody did. I mean, it was they discovered the empty tomb. No one was there during the night or the early morning when he was resurrected. I don't think that's a huge issue, though. They found all the evidence that it had occurred. But I mean, like, again, it goes back to my idea, like, take your Nero example. Like, yeah, some people thought that might happen, but it didn't. And so this actually hits my point when we were talking to Matthew Hartke earlier. It makes more sense for them to have talked about Jesus's death in what you just said. He's gonna rise from the dead. It's gonna happen any day now. I swear it. And then it just wouldn't have happened. But for them to talk about it as if it already did happen, that's unlikely given their cultural context. I'm really glad you brought up the Nero example. You brought that up with Matthew earlier.
I do want to point out something with Nero that's a little bit different than what's happening. Nero is an exception to the rule of Greco-Roman understandings and philosophy too. The Greco-Roman world, they didn't believe in resurrection typically like Jewish people did. They believed in something called apotheosis. So if you're an exemplary person or a king or something like that, you would become eternalized or deified, but that deification process means like you become a constellation or you get incorporated into like this weird abstract world or something like that. Those philosophies are drastically different than what the early Christians were positing with Jesus.
The early Christians claimed that Jesus appeared physically to Mary Magdalene, some other people, but if you read the Gospels, it almost seems as if Jesus's body isn't really a human body, like he moves through walls and things. I don't know if you guys have noticed this.
I mean, that's the weird thing about the resurrected body. It's physical, but it's got new powers.
And you also see this, by the way, in the Old Testament. There's like a transmaterial aspect in the Old Testament. you have appearances of Yahweh in the Old Testament to people, and yet there's physical interactions. If you go to, I think it's Genesis 18, the 3 men approach Abram, and one of those people is God, and God is eating with them. So like there's this weird, there's like the ancient world didn't, the ancient world. Yes, that there's a theophany in the Old Testament where God is physically interacting with people. So what I'm trying to point out here.
What verse is that, please?
I think it's Genesis 18 or is it Genesis 15? I don't remember off the top of my head.
What you're talking about? When Genesis 17.
3 men approaching.
It's 18. Yeah, I believe it's 18, 19. That's when that whole affair happens. Yeah.
But there's plenty of places like this in the Old Testament. Is the point I'm trying to make? And you see this with other spiritual beings in the Old Testament as well. In the ancient world, they didn't have this weird dichotomy that we have where it's like strict material or strict immaterial. There's this like weird in between both and kind of phase where the ancients viewed that you could kind of be both.
Also, my final question would be the other person who came here before. He was talking about the women and why that the Christians believe that due to the criterion of embarrassment that this makes the claim stronger, that they wouldn't use women to profess such a message had it actually not happened. It's the same reason that the secularists believe that John the Baptist actually baptized Jesus, because the early Christians would have had no reason to make it up. But why would Jesus not have appeared to his enemies? Wouldn't that have made the case even stronger?
Well, I mean, Paul is one, but let's let me explain this in a couple ways. For one, God knows every potential future we could take based on his actions. So let's say he knew that in his infinite knowledge that no matter how many times he appeared to Caiaphas or the Pharisees, they were not going to believe. After all, Matthew 12 talks about Jesus casting out demons, and the Pharisees go, well, he's doing it through the power of Beelzebub. It's like, well, okay, you guys are never going to be convinced no matter what happens. You also have the parable in Luke where the Lazarus, the rich man, is in Hades, and he says, send Lazarus back to convince my brothers. And Abraham is like, if they're not going to believe Moses and the prophets, they're not going to believe even if someone were to rise from the dead. In other words, it doesn't matter how much evidence we give them, they're not going to believe. I mean, for crying out loud, the Israelites were walking around the desert with a burning pillar, and they're all like, can we get some more quail? We're not really convinced this God can take care of it. Like, I think human psychology is a little bit more complex than that. So I think that's to be the case. I think Jesus appeared to the people who he knew were going to make this message successful, and he didn't care what those ridiculous skeptics were going to do. He's not here to show off. He doesn't need to. He's God. So that's why I would say.
I want to add something to that really quick too. We need to be careful about asking for evidence that we wish we had, right? The lack of evidence that we wish we had isn't evidence against the theory that best supports the evidence we do have. So for example, like I could easily ask the question, since you're a Muslim, well, why didn't Allah's eternal speech include something like, proving that the resurrection didn't happen? Like Allah would have known that these secular scholars would have like all unanimously agreed that Jesus was crucified. He could have just put that to rest by predicting that or something like that. Why didn't Allah do that? Right? It's the same structure of reasoning. I think that would be a really bad argument against Islam, because I think that's bad reasoning, right? And I think that's intuitive to you. That's why I'm using Islam as an example.
Yeah. But also, could I ask you guys a question about Islam?
Sure.
You both seem like very intelligent guys. So do you guys reject the possibility that Jesus, peace be upon him, could have been a prophet?
Well,
no,
in Christianity,
Jesus was a prophet.
Yeah, in Christianity, we say he's a prophet. He is a prophet. He is a servant. He is the second person of the Trinity. He is Messiah. He is priest. He is prophet. He's all of these things.
But don't you think that the evidence points towards him being a non-divine prophet?
No.
Like the Islamic view of Jesus is more in line with the history.
No, Jesus spoke of himself in ways that show he's not a prophet.
Bashir, I don't I still have to look at Aaron's our video editors.
I misspoke. I meant I should have said he's more than a mere prophet. He was a prophet, but he was more than a mere prophet.
I have a video coming out that I think you would really appreciate, Bashir, on this, where I outline how there's a trajectory all the way from the Torah to the Second Temple period to the early church and into the Jewish Talmud, where you can actually see that the idea that Jesus is God is not like some sort of invention or anything like that. The basic idea is like the idea that Jesus is God is pretty in line with actually what Jewish belief was.
Well, let's just read what Jesus said. I like going to this because Muslims like to bring up John 5. So Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise." Could you imagine Muhammad saying that whatever Allah does, I do also? For the Father loves.
What book is this? What book?
The Gospel of John, chapter 5.
Oh, I rejected the Gospel of John entirely.
Okay, fine.
What about the Gospel of Matthew? What about the Gospel of Matthew?
My view is so I actually do watch a bit of the Christians on this topic. They're very one of their best arguments, I'd have to admit, is the whole Islamic dilemma. So my view on the Injil is there was a physical Injil that we do not have. It's best that even the scholars would agree that Mark is taking from a probable Q source. I would say because the Synoptic Gospels do copy from Mark, they do have more of the proper Injil than John. So I could agree that Mark, Matthew, Luke are or do contain the Injil, but not the Gospel of John. In fact, I think the Quran goes out of its way not to quote from the Gospel of John. It actually does quote parables and from the Synoptic Gospels, but none from the Gospel of John.
So, do you take the Q reconstruction as the Injil?
I think that is what the Injil was. Yes.
Okay. So how about John Kloppenberg's version? Do you think that this is the Injil? That this is at least part of it? Maybe.
He's not a Muslim. No one actually knows what. Yeah, no one knows what Q is. But I'm just saying that.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is because in Q, I don't think we can reconstruct Q, but what they assign to Q is this line right here. Why do you call me? Now he translates it as master, master, but it's actually kiri kiri, which means Lord, Lord. Now, do you know the argument I've used on this before?
Could you rehash the argument?
Yeah. So the argument is that this double vocative, Lord, Lord, kiri kiri in Greek, is only ever applied to Yahweh in the Septuagint and apocryphal pseudepigrapha texts. So Jason Staples, Michael Patrick Barber, other scholars have pointed out, if you go through extant Greek texts from the time or prior, no one is ever called Kiri Kiri other than Jesus and Yahweh. So right here, Jesus is explicitly claiming to be Yahweh. He's using a title only ever applied to Yahweh, and he says that's him. So even in the Q source, there's aspects we can find that will contradict Islam.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just using the Q source as an example of what the Injil was. It's just something we can't find. For example, we have linguists.
This is the issue we need to bring up, because you said this goes back to your original question, though. Doesn't it just make more sense for Jesus just to be a mere prophet in line with Islam? And if we just start going through the earliest texts, no, it isn't. No, he claimed to be far more than a mere prophet. So even that doesn't substantiate your original claim, because we see Jesus definitely preaching something not in line with Islam.
Well, I'm actually not too familiar with the Greek use of that term, or in the Septuagint. I'll have to look more into it. But
that's fair.
I still think that the Synoptic Gospels, particularly Mark, are the closest thing we have to the Injil, and we actually do see the theological development, the deification of Jesus increasing.
I don't think we do, my friend. I think
sure
Mark's
about that?
gospel actually has some of the highest Christology.
It does. It has some of the highest Christology. Jesus makes very clear claims to be God in Mark.
Even the demons make high claims about Jesus' identity, actually.
Why do you think this? Because I've actually read Mark, and I think it's
Are you reading Mark within the Second Temple Jewish context in mind?
Not really. I think you'd know more about that than me.
Yeah, that is going to be the lens that you need to read Mark through. So, for instance, in Mark's Gospel, maybe Mike, you remember the passage off the top of your head, but Mark and Jesus is before Caiaphas, a Jewish leader, for instance, and he asked Jesus, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed?" And then Jesus says, "I am." And then he quotes Daniel 7 saying, "And you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven." And if you read Daniel 7, scholars will point out that coming in the clouds is an exclusive prerogative of Yahweh. And he's claiming to be this second divine figure that is within the identity of Yahweh. And now I can explicate this more if you want to, but this is just like one data point. Another one could be in Capernaum, when Jesus is confronting the demons. The demons say to Jesus, "We know who you are, the Holy One of God." And you might think off the top of your head.
Yep, and I knew it. I did. I actually got it off the top of my head. What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. Now, that's an interesting title.
Yes. Now, you might think, Holy One of God. Okay, well, there you go. He's the Holy One of God. That means Jesus is not God, but that's not that's happening, because if you read things within the Second Temple context again, you can go to some pseudepigraphical literature like First Enoch, and in the opening of First Enoch, you'll actually read Enoch is interpreting a vision he has, and of that vision, he says concerning the parable, it says, and the Holy Great One of God will come. And then it immediately qualifies what he means by that by saying, and the eternal God will walk upon the earth. And if you keep on reading through First Enoch, the expectation is this Holy One of God will be the eternal God who walks on the earth and casts judgment and destroys the forces of evil. And here you have the demons taking that same tradition, saying, "We know who you are, Jesus. You're the Holy One of God, aka the eternal God who walks on the earth, who will destroy us." Hence why they're asking, "Have you come to destroy us?" Mark's gospel is riddled with these really obscure things that you're going to miss if you're not too familiar with the Second Temple context.
That's definitely interesting. I'm gonna look more into that. That sounds interesting. Wow. That being said, I still maintain the position that we don't have the full Injil. I just think that the Synoptic Gospels have it more than anything else. That's why the Quran tells the Christians to judge by it, because it's the next best thing. If we don't have the Injil, it's the next. That's my
But
view on it.
Have you watched my recent video on the Islamic dilemma?
Not yet.
Well, I mean, like,
go ahead.
Yeah, let's just. I mean, like, but with regards to the Islamic dilemma, I mean, like, that's not really a solution, because we've addressed that like a thousand times. I mean, if based on everything Than and I have told you, he's telling us to judge by the gospel. He's telling us to judge by books that teach that Jesus is God, which contradict the Quran now.
Yeah, I think Jesus also, he does this with he tells his followers to listen to the Pharisees as well. He says, listen to the Pharisees, but just do not do as they do. Would that mean that Jesus is affirming Judaism or Pharisaic
Yeah,
interpretation?
this is another one I address a lot. So let me just go to Matthew 23, because that's where this is. So it says, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, so do and observe what they tell you, but not the works they do. Now, here's the thing. For they preach, but they do not practice. That's the full verse. Now, Michael Crosby has pointed out that in the Greek, the word for do and observe what they tell you, the word for tell, basically means recite. So the scribes and the Pharisees sit at Moses' seat. So, and that word for so is a word like that means like therefore. So it's therefore. So when these guys are sitting in Moses' seat, which, as Craig Keener points out, is a line that means when they're reading from the Torah. So when the scribes and the Pharisees are reading from the Torah, do what they recite, but do not do the works they do, for they preach, but they do not practice. Now notice, for they preach. It comes right after it says, do not do the works they do, because preaching is a work they do. So Jesus is saying, when they're reading from the Torah, follow that, but do not listen to their teachings or their preachings, because they're getting all that wrong. The way they're interpreting this, all wrong. So no way is Jesus endorsing what the Pharisees are teaching. He's saying when they're reading the Torah to you, do what they say. But when they try to preach to you, when they're not reciting the Torah, reject it. So it's completely unlike the problem the Quran has.
Mind you, Bashir, too, I really do think that you should watch my recent video on the Islamic dilemma, because if what you're saying is true, then Islam is still false, because it would have been impossible to verify that Muhammad's a true prophet at the time of Muhammad.
What do you mean?
It's too long of an argument to get into it right now.
I can summarize it. Basically, I can summarize it pretty well. That's what I'm here for, Than. I can summarize. It's basically the Quran claims that it has non-circular ways to verify Muhammad as a prophet, but the only ways it gives are circular ways. So it's therefore making false claims. But the only solution, the solution offered up to the Islamic dilemma, is always circular arguments. So Than goes in far more detail in the video, though.
Yeah. A quick analogy, maybe to intuition pump this, Bashir, okay? Suppose I come up to you and I say, hey, there's been a new prophet. His name is Sahil. He is the next prophet after Muhammad. We have our new text called the Diary. And the Diary has texts that say, judge by the Quran. It says that the Quran is corrupted. And it says that Sahil is actually found and prophesied in the Quran, right? Would you?
Yeah.
And I come up to you and I go, so you should believe in the Diary. You should believe that Sahil is the next prophet. And you're going to go, no, Muhammad's the last prophet. And I go, well, hold on. The Quran is corrupted. Okay, Muhammad's not the last prophet. And you can know that Sahil's the next prophet because you can judge by the true parts of the Quran to see that the Diary is true. And you can ignore the false parts because the Diary is true. Are you going to become a follower of Sahil now?
Well, it depends. The prophet also, he showed the signs to the mushrik, to the polytheists. He was shooting water out of his fingers.
But that is not the argument of the Quran. The argument of the Quran.
Yeah, the Quran is a miracle in and of itself.
Are miracles enough to? Okay, so Sahil does miracles now, but he contradicts the Quran.
In what way does he? Is it a major theological contradiction?
Yes, because you believe that Muhammad's the last prophet. Sahil is in continuity with Muhammad, and that's a clear contradiction, for instance. And let's just say Sahil also teaches Jesus was God.
if he if he teaches that Jesus was God, then I can't accept that. But if he says that he's a
Exactly. Okay,
prophet,
great. So now you get now you have a gist for the argument here, right?
yeah, but that would
There is
just make him a
no
Christian. That would just make him a Christian.
no, he's not a Christian because he whatever you let's just
he
say there's
accepts
another
Muhammad as a prophet, just not the final prophet. See?
yeah. Thinking
If
Jesus is
you,
God doesn't automatically entail Christianity. I think there's going to be other things you have to believe. For instance, like
but
he doesn't
it
believe in the
doesn't
Trinity.
make
Let's just
you.
say he doesn't believe in the Trinity. He thinks that Jesus is God, but it's a Unitarian God. Okay, there you go. Not a Christian. The point is the same. All I've done is mirrored the structure of the argument of the Quran, and you're saying I wouldn't believe in that prophet, but you do for Muhammad for some reason.
The prophet, peace be upon him, is in line with the Abrahamic God.
How do
Would
you
you
know
agree with
that?
that?
Wait, how do you know that if the scriptures are corrupted at the time of Muhammad?
Well, if you well, the Quran is talking more about the law of the
No, it isn't.
Torah isn't corrupted. Pardon?
Let me just go to let's just go to Surah 381. Remember when Allah made a covenant with the prophets saying, now that I've given you a book and wisdom. So notice it's not just law, it's the whole book. If there comes to you a messenger confirming what you have, not just confirming the law, but confirming the book, you must believe in him and support him. By this own criteria, we as Christians should reject Muhammad because he did not confirm our book.
Well, when you say your book, do you mean the Bible, the whole Bible?
The
Because
Kitab.
the Kitab. Well, the Quran does say that it confirms that we had sent the Injil to Jesus, peace be upon him. We had sent the Torah to Moses, peace be upon him. We had sent the Zabur to David, peace be upon him. So it's not the whole Bible that's being confirmed. It's the Injil, in my opinion, the three synoptic gospels which contain the most of this Injil, the Zabur, which are the Psalms, and the Torah, the law of the Torah given to Moses. But these laws are no longer binding for anyone to follow after the arrival of the Prophet, peace be upon him.
So first off, it says believe. Surah 241 doesn't just it goes more generally. So you go to Surah 568. You also go to Surah 241, where we're told to believe in the Quran because they confirm our scriptures, plural, not just the Torah, not just the gospel. But also, I mean, you said that it's only telling us to judge by the gospel, like the laws of the gospel. But then you just said now that Muhammad came, we're not supposed to use the laws of the gospel. So it's like, why even have that in there? That makes the Quran, it doesn't make sense then.
But Christians would have this problem as well because Jesus says he doesn't abolish the law, but he kind of comes to fulfill it.
But we also don't say anything in the Old Testament was corrupted. And so we're all like, yeah, that's all good scripture. We're not against scriptures being fulfilled or as Muslims say, abrogated. The question is that the same theology in the Old and New Testament is there. The same history is there. So there aren't the contradictions with the Quran because the Quran contradicts the theology and the history of the Bible.
But didn't the Protestants didn't they remove like 7 books from the Bible?
So here's the whole story on that. So this is much more complicated than the way it sounds. So you have the Old Testament of the Catholics, which included the Apocrypha or the deuterocanonical books. As some church fathers would say, they're scriptural or some say they're scriptural. Some will say they're a good read, but they're not on the level with everything we have in the actual canon. So what happens is there's a guy named Saint Jerome around the same time as Augustine, and Saint Jerome goes to the Jews and he makes the Vulgate. He translates the Hebrew into the Latin, and he recognizes. And so what he does, he doesn't include books like Tobit or Judith because they're not part of the Hebrew Bible the way the Jews have it. So he makes that. And so then there's this tension. The Protestants just went with that canon because that was the canon the Jews were using. They didn't use the full Greek one, which included the Apocrypha. So there's a lot more debate about this. It's just the Protestants are just not using the deuterocanonical, whereas those in the Catholic or Orthodox Church are including the deuterocanonical, which just means second book. So the apocryphal, the apocryphal. I always get those two words confused: apocryphal, but the apocryphal are not on the same level as the other Old Testament books, like, for example, the Psalms or the Torah, that kind of stuff.
But the New Testament comes from Christians who were using the Septuagint, who were using the Greek version of the Old Testament. So when the Protestants removed these books, the main reasons I'd heard they used for this were theological reasons. Like in Second Maccabees, you have people praying for the dead and these kind of theological issues. Wouldn't that be the same as what we do in Islam, where we reject the deification of Jesus? I mean, we do actually confirm your gospels. Like we confirm that Jesus was born of a virgin. We confirm that he was preaching from a young age. We confirm these things about Jesus. We don't confirm everything. We're just telling the Christians, hey, we are in line with you. You've gotten it wrong, but you have to follow us now. This is no longer the time where you can follow your law or your gospel. You have to follow Islam now. You have to follow the Prophet.
The symmetry breaker here is Jesus does not say the Old Testament's corrupted, and you can know that he's the true prophet based off the corrupt text by judging what parts are true based off what agrees with him and what doesn't agree with him. You get rid of.
Well, I mean, also with the Protestants, they didn't add a new book. They didn't add like the Gospel of Martin Luther or something like that. They just said we don't think these books are scripture. So there's that's another symmetry breaker as well.
I think I get your point, but the Mormons did add a book in that.
Yeah, they're heretics. We reject them. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're wrong.
Atheists,
yeah,
so.
we're all on the same page. Let's reject the Mormons here. Yep.
Yeah. So you don't accept the Mormons as Christians, but they're
not Christians. No.
Jesus died for. They believe that Jesus died for them.
I think Jesus died for everybody. The scope of atonement is universal. The application is not.
All right, so you guys would reject the Mormons, but you would accept the Protestants as Christians, right?
Yeah, because they accept core essential doctrines of Christianity that we see the early church taught.
All right, you guys would reject also the low and high Christology. I'd have to look more into that, but you reject Islam on the basis that we don't exactly confirm what you got. All right, let me ask you a question. Do you guys
even if Islam agreed that the Trinity is true and that Jesus is God, I would still reject Islam because I think that there is no way to verify that Muhammad was a true prophet based off of what the Quran's argument is.
Do you guys reject the Seventh-day Adventists? Because they have a prophet.
I don't think Ellen G. White was a prophetess.
So do you think that they are heretics?
It depends on the one you're talking to. Some of them will try to do like a lower view of her teachings. Some actually reject the Trinity and place her like on the level of Scripture, and that's heresy.
So your reasons.
I don't really understand what you're trying to get at with this line of questioning at the end of the day.
No,
this doesn't really get you out of the problem.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the Christian view of why, because I don't understand the Christian rejection of Islam, like especially from a logical point of view, because you guys are philosophical. I've seen you guys argue from reason. Wouldn't it be more logical to accept the claims of Islam rather than the complexity of the Trinity?
No.
These arguments.
No, I mean, just think of all the problem with the Quran. I mean, the Islamic dilemma is enough. The Quran claims to confirm our scriptures and directly contradicts them in so many ways. So, I mean, like, this is, even if you're like, I was an atheist, I still wouldn't accept Islam because it's just a I would say, like, well, it's a self-contradictory religion. It's telling its followers to believe in scriptures that contradict its core book, the Quran. It's paradoxical. Islam is completely self-contradictory.
Bashir, watch that video, because if my argument in that video is correct, that means that a contradiction is entailed based off the claims the Quran makes. If I have to believe a logical contradiction, I'm not going to believe the religious claims of Islam.
Think about this like this though, Bashir. I mean, like you're realizing there's some powerful evidence for the resurrection, and there's some powerful problems in Islam. Why stay a Muslim? Why not become a Christian when we have all the evidence in this camp, and Islam is still trying to explain how its own text can confirm scriptures it's contradicting? This seems like the much better explanation.
Well, my whole point is that the resurrection is not as weak as I thought it was, because Paul is already saying these things a few years after the crucifixion. I always thought that this is like a later development, so I was a bit scared when I first heard this, but when I started to look into it more, I could see other explanations, like maybe I really do believe that Paul had seen something. I don't know what it was, but there's
if
no.
You read Acts, there was a bright light that he saw, and he heard a voice. And this wasn't just merely a vision, because Acts records that the men that were with him also heard the voice as well. And also, Paul was blind after this, so that's.
It could have been Allah. Allah could have sent a message to him.
Oh, so wait, Allah is sending a message to Paul saying, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Understanding that be Jesus, and then affirms the lie of the resurrection and crucifixion of Jesus by appearing to Paul.
Well, Paul, what Paul was doing was also wrong, because Allah says, "I will protect the followers of Jesus." What Paul
are these
was doing
actual followers of Jesus who are going around preaching his resurrection and the fact that he's God?
They were the closest thing to followers of Jesus. I mean, they were the ones following him.
So you think that the earliest followers of Jesus believed in the resurrection of Jesus and believed that he was God?
I think the disciples, the 12, believed they were in line with the Muslim view of Allah. I believe that the resurrection was
the earliest followers of Jesus thought Jesus was God.
Yeah.
I'd have to look. Do we have any writings from the 12? That's the.
Yeah. We have the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of John.
And you think that the Injil is incorporated in the Synoptic Gospels? So we have the testimony in the Injil of what they thought as well.
I accept that.
A lot of people tend to misunderstand what modern scholarship says as well. By the way, the debate is not whether or not the earliest followers of Jesus believed that he was God. The debate is, how do we explain the early emergence of this belief? Some scholars will say it's because, like, the earliest teaching was that. And some other scholars will say, well, within this very short time frame, people came to believe this because of such and such reasons. But it's a very short time frame within the earliest followers' lifespans. So the early scholars were not congruent with Islam.
The Quran is quite, doesn't mention Paul it does mention his disciples. I do believe that the three gospels, the synoptic gospels, do not imply the divinity of Christ,
Well, we've
of the
already covered that
Messiah.
they do.
Yeah, we kind of
We
covered that.
I mean, like, here's the thing: we're kind of going in circles now, Bashir. I mean, I think there's a lot here. We don't. We're overloading you at this point. Check out a lot of the stuff you said.
You did say I would need a definitive claims that the three gospels are claiming that Jesus is God, not just Kiri. I would need like.
Well, I gave you two other examples, right?
Yeah.
Which ones again? Pardon?
The Holy One of God title, Jesus claiming to be the Son of Man who rides on the clouds. I mean, we can keep going if you want to.
Yeah,
how about First Corinthians, where Paul recapitulates the Shema and incorporates Jesus within the divine identity of Yahweh as well, because he says he recapitulates the Shema in First Corinthians, and he says we have one God and one Lord. So it's one God from whom are all things, and one Lord through whom are all things. Speaking of God the Father and Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's definitely interesting. I'll go watch you guys' videos. Thank you guys for your time and answering my questions. This was a lovely chat.
We're gonna be praying for you so that you come to Christ. Just so you know, we appreciate the conversation. Thank you for coming. Please do watch some of those videos because you are a very reasonable guy, and we definitely enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, man. We'll hope you come back in the future for sure, because we do these every week.
All right, man. All right. Have a good day.
All right, guys, it's been 3 hours. We're probably going to close this out now. I'm sorry for the other like 80 people waiting to get in, but I'm exhausted. Than is exhausted.
Children screaming outside upstairs right now.
Okay, Than hears children screaming. So sorry, guys. We're everyone else waiting. We're gonna close this out. All said. Yeshua King says AI said and gave a chart showing Christianity overwhelmingly has more documented miracles. Christian 70 to 75%, all other 10 to 15, non 5 to 10%. Interesting.
I'm skeptical of AI, but that I wouldn't be surprised if that was true.
I'd like to see if there's any sort of surveys that looked at that. Did Craig Keener do something like that? Maybe that'd be interesting to see if there's any kind of surveys. Yeah. The overwhelming majority do seem to be Christian, just from. But I guess actually though, an AI would be the type of thing you'd go to use to scour the internet and find all the reports and see where the actual statistics are, instead of like people doing that. Then that'd be a job for AI, because you're just asking it to get numbers for you. You're not asking it.
Yeah, it all depends on what they mean by miracles too, though, because like Islamic miracles are not actually going to be miracles for like in the same sense that Christian miracles are. Islamic miracles are like this cow was risen by reacting to the Quran being recited.
Oh God, yes.
Right, like stuff like that. It's like not a real miracle. So I'm curious to know what gets defined as a miracle in some of these cases.
Yeah. Can the supernatural include natural aspects influences? Yes, absolutely.
I denied the distinction. I don't know about you, Mike.
Deny the distinction. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Please check your email and reply tomorrow. Cleo. Who is this to?
I don't know. Let me see my email.
Which email? I got like 8.
Probably your inspiring philosophy one, Mike. I don't have one, so it's probably for you.
I'll look. I don't know. I don't see anything. Sorry, Cleo. We need more data on what you're referring to here. It says the inspiring philosophy one. Okay. I will try to go through that and see what it is, because I have 2 emails I use for that also. So I got to go through both of them, and I'm backed up on that. So anyway, guys, before we go, everyone come back Sunday. Something big has happened Sunday. Something big. I don't know if you know, but Jake Broncatello is going to debate Nick of Fearless Truth live on the channel. Put that up for you guys. This is happening. So it'll be Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So 4 p.m. Eastern. You guys do the math to figure out the rest. Yeah, should be good. So come back for that. That's the next time we'll be live. Also, we got a video tomorrow coming out on why did Jesus curse the fig tree? I'm going to explain to you why he did. So yeah, Than's going to get some food and go take a nap. He looks exhausted.
I need protein.
He needs protein. All right. We'll see you guys Sunday for the debate. Come back for that. You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.